You know this is the best Sirocco in the US? Yeah.
What does that mean?
Just,
He's actually laughing as well. This is not a joke.
Wait.
If I showed you my clicks on Sirocco, crazy.
more clicks than a fucking chiropractor. It's fucking incredible.
Alright.
Alright, you ready to go?
Yeah, we're Gucci, let's go.
Right, recording. Hello, welcome to possibly the most anticipated meeting since Chris Eubank versus Nigel Benn at the Velodrome. That's a reference that you won't get, but in any case, This is the Ruddy Esports interview with LS, aka Lost Sailor, who is a navigator turned co-streamer who hails from the Shadow Isles, a place where they don't have any internal lighting. Having been lost at sea due to a lack of map awareness, he now resides in Korea. Being from Antarctica originally, he has a lot of knowledge on freezing and also items that cost 350 gold, dark seals. He also briefly, much like Christopher Columbus, got lost and spent a bit of time in North America. He was quoted at the time as saying, "No, my pathing wasn't bad. Captain Jack just played the waves wrong." Now hard stuck on the other side of the Atlantic, low socialization could be found sailing on the bottom of the Korean solar queue ladder, much like he almost sailed to the bottom of the sea. Hello, LS. Welcome to the Ruddy Extra Sack interview.
Thank you. Looking forward to it, yeah.
Absolutely. You look like you're looking forward to it. Looking at the watch already. Move the mic away, mate. Otherwise, you're going to be clipping. Come on. Getting that so close to you. We spoke a little bit about Christopher Columbus there. That's a little bit of a reference. And obviously he wasn't actually a pilgrim. That's just a conspiracy theory. He was just a colonialist xenophobe.
Yeah.
But you are actually a pilgrim. You're not necessarily a patriot for your home nation of the US, but you aren't just a pilgrim for having made the trip to Korea, the land of churches. You also went to didn't you?
I did. That's a little... Yes, you did. All right, you did your research, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, if that freaks you out, then it will probably freak you out to know that we also know that you were born at 7:42 in the evening.
Well, I have talked about that on stream.
There's also an astrology page about you.
Oh, really?
We've got all your natal charts and whatnot.
Wait, really?
Yeah, we've actually plotted out your entire personality based on that.
all right.
You know, we're quite, you know, we're like girls in that way. We just like to, you know, plot out people's personalities based on that.
Yeah, I don't like girls.
It's a good start. They've got cooties, I agree with you, to be honest with you.
Completely, yeah.
One of the things about you is you love a horror film, don't you?
I do, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's well documented. I mean, I've done my research, so I know that back when you were 14 in 2007, on one day you actually watched 1408 and Captivity back to back on the same day, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember talking about that.
We weren't there, but we remember it, technically speaking, just sort of in the abscesses of our mind.
Yeah. I love horror films. That's why I watch LCS.
Do you think your fascination with this genre is the reason why you've been able to put up with Western League of Legends for so long? You've actually just ruined our fucking joke before then. Just shut the fuck up while I'm doing jokes, mate, because, you know, you've actually completely ruined one of our well-crafted jokes there. Absolutely. You know, I'm going to get you. This is not polite, this next one. Okay. I don't feel bad at all now.
Okay. Go ahead.
You're a critic of society at large in a way that, I mean, you know, Gore Vidal once said they don't build monuments to critics, but it might be, I mean, they monumented you in the game, technically speaking, by putting you in the shop. Mm-hmm. But you really get into the depths of the human condition a lot of the time, critical thinking, breaking it down. I mean, in many ways, we do live in a society, don't we? Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, we all had to put on a mask, but you were wearing a mask long before the pandemic. What can you tell me about this photo of you at the Red Bull Battlegrounds back in the old days of yore?
I was, so I actually remember that. I was practicing against Scarlet to warm up for the Red Bull Battlegrounds, and it was actually the first time that I was...
Do you think he had a home advantage being called Scarlet at the Red Bull Battlegrounds? She, sorry.
She, yeah.
I've done my research on that.
She wasn't at the tournament, but it's fine. But anyways, I was sick at the event,
editor,
so that's why I was wearing the mask. Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh, I'm not going to feel bad now. You know?
No, that's fine.
You know, these things happen.
No, well, you asked why I was wearing the mask.
This is where, you know, we talk about the mask, you wear the mask. I mean, it feels like no one knew you before you put on the mask.
True. That's
and
a
now
quote.
they do. Now you're unmasked. But let's mask our way to a segue here.
Okay.
A lot of people in previous moments have criticised our format as being a direct rip-off of Nardwuar, in that we have the ability to use the Google search function and we actually care about player narratives.
Okay.
That's a little joke out there for any of you budding journalists. But one step we've actually never taken to fully copy Nardwuar is to give someone a gift.
Okay.
And we've decided that given your stature and given that you have taught us a lot over the years, as personal, me and Regan behind the camera, you are our first candidate for giving a gift.
Okay.
And we've done a lot of research on you, thought about you, your history, where you came from, where you're going. And I will tell you this now, getting this has been the biggest fucking ball ache in my entire fucking life. the trip that we have gone on today to acquire this item for you,
Okay.
and I'm not joking, you might think, oh, funny interview, man. Like, he's joking. I've genuinely done you such a gratuitous act of kindness by getting you this.
Okay.
It's mental. So,
All right.
2003, I'll set the scene for you. OGN, the company that made, would earlier do LCK, that is now LCK, released a DVD. And it has one of your idols.
It's a Boxer. Yeah.
Boxer.
Yes.
Limited collector's item, DVDs with his games. Very fucking difficult to find. And that's for you.
Where was this?
What do you mean, where was
Where
this?
did you find it?
Well, where did I find it? Let's fucking get into that. Where did I find it? Impossible to find. They haven't printed it for about a decade.
Right.
We found a seller on some random website that I couldn't get. I couldn't get an account on the website because I don't have a Korean social security number. So essentially what I had to do is I had to get a friend that speaks Korean to speak to the guy that was selling this.
Yeah.
He refused to meet us initially because we're all foreigners.
Yeah.
And as you know, they don't like us apparently.
Right.
But I spoke to him and essentially he was like, I'll meet you for 4 times the price in another city. So we travelled all the way to Osan today to pick this up from him. He met us in the thing. We paid 4 times what the asking price was. But we had to do it because you're LS.
All right.
And that's your gift.
Thank you so much. I think a lot of people don't actually realize the importance of this person, like in esports' history.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want me to?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I mean, obviously, like Boxer's the first. It's the first icon in South Korea, right? And a lot of people don't realize that StarCraft 1 was larger than even League is today in South Korea. And that's a pretty unfathomable thing to even try to imagine. So Boxer was super celebrity status, right?
Yeah.
If you go around and you ask like 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds if they know Im Yo-hwan, they're all going to say yes in the streets. He's one of the main reasons that StarCraft blew up. And if StarCraft doesn't blow up, Warcraft 3 probably doesn't blow up. And if that doesn't happen, does that not lay the framework for Dota? And does that not lay the framework eventually for League of Legends and like all this other stuff? So, yeah, it's one of the founding fathers of esports, right?
Well, I think in the way that we were saying, like in terms of where you've been, I wanted to give you something that is a precursor, very much to the reason that you are here and you're able to teach us so much.
No, thank you so much. Really,
might be a bit hard to understand because all of the videos are in Korean. So
I'm conversational, but
I know you're conversational.
I'm not fluent,
but like having to directly watch the VODs, but I think it will be good to enjoy anyway.
Yeah,
and I hope that you can. I think there's like if you actually open it up,
to buy a DVD player, we don't.
Well, fucking hell, that's illegal.
Computers don't even come with. Oh, do PlayStations play DVDs? Yeah. Do they?
Well, I just travelled fucking 4 hours.
No, that's
last concern of yours.
I think that's a discless
DVD player.
It's discless, yeah. It's discless. It's a discless PlayStation.
You've got all the information, load of facts, and you've got a little Q&A on the back as well.
Okay.
It's not in the best condition, I will say, but
it's totally fine.
If you sell this, we want 20%.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Can I be checking up on you, buddy? You still got that DVD?
I'm gonna get it signed by him. That's.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I probably can. He's a T1, so.
Oh wow. Just thought about that.
What?
Just handed away some serious money there.
No, there you go.
I have to take it back when we turn the cameras off. You spoke about how one of the conditions on C9 was them helping you with a more permanent visa in Korea, I think at the time. I don't know where that went necessarily. Yeah, but in any case, I would have thought that the Korean government would have taken note of your vast contribution to the economy.
So no, it's not about that. I mean, obviously.
No, I don't think you know where I'm going with this. I was more so saying because you've convinced a flock of unwashed masses from the West to set up shop in Seoul, trading their sleazy American dollars for hours in the PC bang, chasing the false idol of going pro despite not being able to reach top 100 on EU West or NA. Is that not a major contribution to the South Korean government? Yeah.
I've swindled them all, actually. I've actually, I should actually bring that up, actually. My immigration, I should bring that up
There's
to
a benefit.
the meeting. Right, exactly.
It might be built on a throne of lies, but, it's still, the foundations are still there.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, it's fine.
Viking Anton stayed with you years and years ago, and I was amazed by your bravery to so openly lambast him and verbally confront him on his work ethic. Especially because, I've met him in real life. The story of me meeting Viking Anton is I bumped into him at the Montpellier at the LEC finals, and he saw me. He's like, Don Jake. And he went to put his arm out to do like a embrace.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was immediately catapulted into the stratosphere at a rate of G-force akin to that one film they made about the hamsters. he is just a mental force. I mean, he's about 6'6", built like a brick shithouse.
Yep.
It's mental that you're able to sort of stand up to him. I wanted to ask about, I heard a rumour and a story that apparently when he stayed with you, he did a giant poo that was so big that it had to be flushed in 3 separate parts, like a Lord of the Rings movie.
No, I don't think that ever happened, no.
Well, apparently you had to cut the Western shit.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I did. I see where you're going with that. Yeah. Okay. That was pretty good.
Thank you. You see, it's the idea that it's me and one other guy sitting up at 1 a.m. writing these frivolous jokes is really something that needs to be studied when you actually consider that we've been paid to be here. It's just an absolute dream. In any case, on to the next question. We previously mentioned it, but you're obviously known for your low-lit cave dwelling of a home, which actually I was quite surprised to see there is quite a lot of lighting in here. Yeah. I don't know what it's like in your actual personal bedroom. Mm-hmm. Lovingly dubbed the Mordekaiser alt by fans.
Yes.
We know that despite being mean for this, it's more health-related in terms of issues and going back to some of the stuff. But it sparked a lot of confusion because we went back to some of your early StarCraft VODs and you seem to have no problems with vision. Apparently you could see the whole map.
No, I never map hacked. I rigged maps, so it was different, you know?
The problem with that is we literally know that, but we had to make the joke work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
So we've grossly misrepresented you.
No.
Much like a guy in chat, we have grossly misrepresented what actually happened for the purpose of personal humour.
Yeah, that actually happens a lot with me. You know, it's fine.
Oh, we're fully aware, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
happens all the time, actually.
I feel with a degree of self-awareness, it almost makes it all all right.
Yeah, no, doesn't. I'm gone soon, like...
But it's interesting to me with this whole vision thing because obviously I see you do a lot of critique of recently people buying pink wards. You're quite an anti...
That's actually why.
Yeah, well, these people are spending money to improve their vision, which is the exact same thing that you did.
Well, I froze my vision.
It's hypocrisy, isn't it? I mean, I know you like freezing. Let's not get onto that too quickly. But how is it in any way different? I mean, it's double standards, low standards as usual from the Leandri's grift merchant. You know,
yes,
just
exactly.
sort of not allowing people to do what he does himself.
Exactly.
Practice what you preach, LS.
Exactly, yeah. That's actually why I hate control words. I don't like that people can buy more vision.
Yeah,
I can't.
He's seething.
Yeah.
Literally thinking about these LPL supporters buying 50 control wards.
Yes. Oh man, I saw Chris do it. I just couldn't stand it.
He loves a pink ward.
He really does. Yeah.
He loves a fucking.
He does. Maybe not as much as Kellen and LCK.
Brother Kellen.
Yeah, and Beryl.
The man that almost could.
I've coined the term barreling now.
Barreling.
That's when
do
you buy
a barrel roll.
Well, kind of, right? Yeah, barrel. Yeah, that's when you buy 2 control words every back.
Have you already thought of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is mental.
Yeah,
that is good.
Yeah.
Churches. We spoke about it before. It's at the centre of your fandom, obviously. Church of Chovy, Church of LS. It all comes hand in hand.
Yep.
You've built a congregation on top the aching bones of a children's wizard game. I mean, it's quite impressive. There has been some criticism, however, in the past. Some media outlets have referred to you as a shepherd. We've actually been advised by our legal team to not use the word cult leader there. But you've recruiting impressionable young men into your flock, not a cult, by speaking of fantastical concepts like itemization, wave states, and most famous of all, freezing, as we previously mentioned, freezing. I mean, there are concerns with a lot of these code words that there are some clear attempts at dog whistling and concealing messages amongst the disciples. It's all very, I mean, the use of colour, for example, red to refer to aggression and outward strength, green for harmony, blue as control or manipulation, black as power at cost. I mean, it's all a bit cloak and dagger, really. It reminds me of sort of a Mormon church or maybe the Scientologists. Do you think this criticism is warranted in any way?
Why do you leave out white?
Huh?
Why do you leave out white?
I couldn't remember what it was. There's only so far that my committal to this bit will go. If we stretch it far enough, it really starts to break down. It's the problem with a lot of my jokes. They look good on the surface, but ostensibly at least. But when you start to break them down a little bit more, it really starts to fade.
Okay. Right.
But yeah, back to the question. Do you think this criticism is warranted? Do you think all of these people critiquing you? I mean, I hope that you won't go to extra measures to silence them and make them disappear. But it's like that meme about Drake recently, where they say a lot of people talk about Drake as a hit maker, but they won't talk about the unscrupulous gang warfare that he has waged across Toronto. Do you feel responsible in any way for the violence that has been faced in Western League of Legends?
No, I don't. No, I don't know where you're going with this. I don't know how to answer this. I think most people. Do you want me to answer seriously or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean it's obviously a joke, but there is a degree of seriousness.
No. I think most people. I think also like during Worlds, this happened a lot where I would say something that was originated from like the substance of the claim rather than just the claim itself.
Yeah, of course.
People can't engage with the substance. So they just attack the main claim. Whereas if they were to engage with the substance, they would realize that they lack the ability to do so.
Yeah.
And that's where
It's the coward's way out.
Sure, and that's where a lot of the problems I think that surround like stuff with me comes from. Yeah.
That's it. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. I actually have a question later that links back into it, so I'll remind to go a bit more full circle. You had a bit of a heartfelt reveal back in 2022 where you sort of talked about how you were able to characterize and finally put a word to one of the illnesses that have potentially plagued you in recent memory. You revealed that you've been diagnosed with autism.
2023.
2023. Okay, cool. So got the date slightly wrong on that. But I'd been a fan of you for years. I mean, I once watched you give a 45-minute explanation about the history of StarCraft, why North America has implicit advantages at the start of a game cycle, which is also something I really want to get onto that's really interesting to me, only to find out that after a 45-minute explanation that you'd actually read the question wrong entirely. And despite everyone in chat telling you that you'd read it wrong, you refused and just went steam train, full blinkers on, no looking at what was next to you, and then did that, which was interesting to me. And then beyond that, I'm such an old OG viewer that I literally remember you making a documentary about a Street Fighter video game, and you turned it into a metaphor for West versus East work ethic. With all of this in consideration, do you think that one of the biggest tragedies in your life might have been not meeting me sooner? Because I feel like I could have told you were autistic years ago.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that actually is it. Yes. I'd only had one person actually even suggest it, and the first person that suggested it was actually in 2021, but we never dug into it.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until 2022 that it got brought up again when I was like months into therapy. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess in some ways, I mean, it is obviously a joke, but
no, it was
I mean, I feel like for me personally, being someone that I like to talk about. I'm very candid about my struggles with mental health as well. I feel like getting that first, like, it's more about, like, you shine that first light in the dark of what is actually plaguing you. Sure. So I can imagine that was probably quite freeing at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it made sense of why so many things didn't make sense, right? Why I feel so alien in so many situations. And now there's a lot of, like, friendships that I've repaired almost in a way, right? And nowadays, we're able to talk through certain situations where I just cannot emotionally understand what they're feeling, and then I try to like logically attach things to it. Yeah, for sure. And that's a really big learning experience that I just never had. 29 years.
I think the interesting thing about that, and when I think about that question, and one of the things I wanted to tack it onto is you being someone that has developed their own lexicon. From throughout, like, the kind of phraseology of saying, like, oh, that's uncharacteristic for him. That's what you always say when someone is playing badly. Or just the kind of, like, I remember there's a Reddit post you responded to where someone characterized all the phrases and how to understand LS. For you to develop such a verbose lexicon of ability to translation, but to lack that sort of, and now to have that recontextualization of a language of understanding through emotion. Right. That must be quite not necessarily ironic, but it must be a bit of a hit in the face that potentially the skill set that you developed to become so good and influential in the game was actually, there's another pathway of that you had been missing the whole time.
Sure, right, yes. So it's a double-edged sword in both ways. So it's very, very weird. It's just a double-edged sword.
This is where, officially, I've got in my notes, we get into the more serious questions. Sure. Because these are a lot of jokes. I think we wanted to do like a short form into long form, because I have, obviously, some actual good questions here, quote unquote. Okay. There's a famous clip of Forbidden on Dom's channel that I'm sure you can remember, where he's sort of talking about, he's kind of attacking not necessarily you necessarily, but you'd assume as one of the astute figures or figureheads of it. He talks about you and your school of thought as kind of, he puts it off in a way of like, oh, these guys are nerds, I just play off intuition, I play off feeling, I'm not here to study the game and play meticulously in that way. And I wanted to ask you, as studying you with someone that's kind of had a similar format and baseline for the game for 10 years now, your philosophy is well documented. You have a very critical thinking breakdown of the game. But I think if we're to play devil's advocate and actually build his argument to a place that would actually be not the reasoning of a toddler, we would be able to express himself in the way of, his logical extension of his argument is, do you think that your approach to the game in its consideration of logic is, and never accounting for enemy mistakes in order to assume modal optimization, does this ignore in some ways the intangibles that go into winning? Because what he's saying there is he prefers to play off of feeling, whereas that might not necessarily, and not to tie it back to the thing we were talking about before, but you talked about logic versus emotion. Do you feel like that is not necessarily a missing piece, but have you accounted for that in your theory of the game, the intangibles and emotions and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, that's almost the ironic part where people attack it, right? Is the irony in that people will continuously over the years make the claim that I assume that the people are robotic when it's the opposite.
Yeah.
That my approach or view of the game actually assumes that the person is human. And that's why you want to limit the amount of variables that one has to control and reduce variance and play to things that are guaranteed and are known. The emotional aspect or the feeling-based aspect of the game, it is obviously real, right? But as anyone knows that as people start at the very beginning of the game, and as you improve in the game, your feelings on different situations and events obviously changes based on how much information that you have. So while like, a platinum jungler might always be afraid that...
That reminds me of a quote, not to cut you off, but very quickly, because I know that there was a very pivotal moment in your life when you did a lot of Skype calls with Yosh.
Yosh, yeah.
And you talked about how one of the major things that he one of the major things that he taught you was that what's right now is not right forever.
Right.
So that kind of relates to what you're saying a little bit.
Yeah. What's right now, right. So basically, a platinum player might always think that the jungler can always gank them, right? But a higher level player might remember when they last saw the jungler, and they know how unlikely it is that they can get ganked, right? And that's obviously based off of a higher level game understanding.
Availability of variables.
Right. Now, it's obvious that you can accept or understand that like there's a 1% chance or a 2% chance they might just be giga coin flipping something, right? The gripe that I take with people that have like Fevaben stance in that clip or people akin to that is it's so limiting in nature, and it almost seems like it stems from ignorance or almost fear. That the level that they're at right now is so high level, and then to them to entertain that there might be so much more to do. And it's not natural to them, and they would have to be conscientious of doing it. They would rather dismiss it, or just pretend that it doesn't exist, or say that like no, like that can't be right. Even though it's already been proven and established, there's so many people that do it, acknowledge its existence, and can intentionally act upon it. And what wasn't possible yesterday is possible tomorrow. And I mean, we know this, right? With like. Just watching the natural evolution of the game, right? How much people can do now that they weren't able to before. So I don't know. It's really bizarre. For me, I think one of the things that killed my passion for the game and really just destroyed like my desire in this scene and everything was the amount of pushback I got for just simply trying to push ideas that min-maxing. Like this is how you min-max, and it was never about if I'm right or wrong. It's I can demonstrate that this is right or that it's more optimal. Even if it's only 1% more optimal, can you show me why it's not 1% more optimal? I don't care if you can show me that the other thing works 49%. That's not the argument.
I think it's about, we spoke to Whippo a little bit about this, and hopefully this will come out afterwards, so it might be a nice callback to that. But one of the things that struck me with him and what he was so able to acutely put down for me was how we define success just as a general metric. And I think you're talking about it there. It's about, when you're talking about adjusting these 1% or min-maxing, it's less about the direct results and reading. It's more about reading the poetry between the lines and realizing that success can be redefined by different metrics.
Right. It's like one of the really cool things, and I think I posted it once, and people maybe wouldn't get it unless they play poker. Is like you look at a poker player's hand graph over like 500,000 hands, and then you zoom in on it, and if you ask the poker player like, why am I not improving, and you only look at the first 10,000 hands, that's a lot of hands, right, to a normal person, but the graph barely moves, right? It's only when you zoom out and you look at 500,000 hands and you see the line. That you really see the improvement. And that's what people don't realize. It's just 1% micro improvements. And I come from RTSs, so this is normal to me. But for people in MOBAs, I don't know, it's alien, I guess. It's really heartbreaking. I mean, I'm very broken in the game.
Just to start again, because the recording stopped. So you obviously had a hand in the C9 roster. And I think that generally speaking in the West, we've got like a very eschewed perspective with a lot of big corporate teams spending big on super rosters or just in general not understanding that personality plays a big part. But you've spoken about that, although you're critiqued for not considering the intangibles, you actually think it's the exact opposite, and min-maxing and all these sort of things. How difficult is it to consider these sort of in terms of roster building? Because you obviously come from a StarCraft environment that is so self-focused on the individual min-maxing. And I remember you had an analogy one time where you talked about, and it's one of the things that changed my perspective on the game a lot, I think you were coaching Crown Shot. Crouching crown shot. That's an alliteration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coaching crown shot, but he was saying he didn't want to sack this wave to help Karthus, and you said, well, imagine you were in control of all 5 players, like it was StarCraft. You would want him as the modal condition of the game to advance his interest, and it's about looking outside and being able to, the metaphor I used with Bippo in talking about how he approaches the game is it's almost like every player is on the map and they're very zoomed in, but some players are able to zoom out on that map.
Right.
So in terms of, you obviously have that skill set coming from RTSs to be able to have that zoomed out bird's eye view, but a lot of other people, it feels like, are playing a very much a limited map state.
Yeah, they can't. Right.
So where do, not necessarily the solution, because I don't think we're here to proselytize about what the solution to that is, but what do you think the core root of that, or potentially like a foundational, because that links me up to another thing you say. You always talk about how you don't think you can reteach people's approach to the game, and you would always prefer to coach someone from fresh. Is part of that reason because it's easier to teach them that zoomed out perspective before they get too zoomed in?
One of the things that, so obviously like this past off season, right? I had some offers from teams, and I also got contacted about. Can
you tell us so we can clickbait?
No,
I'm joking.
I also got asked about the specific question that you're actually asking me, because roster building. This was also something I was contacted about last year, even during like the free agency period.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I talked about is it's not about how old someone is necessarily. Like physical age. It's about how weathered they are as a player. I would imagine that a 16-year-old who has played the game for 5 years is the exact same as a 21-year-old who becomes 26, right? So a 16-year-old who becomes 21, 21-year-old who becomes 26, they're equally weathered in their experiences and, their belief systems, their habits, and whatever else. And I think that's where it becomes difficult to do certain things, right? And one of the things that I've always been really adamant about is stack deck personalities when approaching teams, and that should be really important when you're doing roster building. And obviously sometimes you can't because you're under time constraints and problems can pop up there. So, stack deck, I think it's very easy to tell. You can ask a series of questions to see how a person reaches conclusions and breaks things down. And then you can get a pretty good idea of like what type of person you're dealing with.
For sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to ask then, just based off of that, I mean, we touched a little bit on Yosh, but I think we kind of got enough of that. But I think the interesting there for me is that it feels like technically, because as much as I think you've credited him publicly, but obviously the message it's difficult when it's being clipped up for someone to always find that message. But you talk about how you give him a lot of credit. You were actually a sinner before. You were the Kiana player before you kind of were converted to this more methodology. But it's interesting to me that you are sort of the one that proselytizes this form of Western League of Legends and are trying to share this message. I wanted to ask, are you familiar with the myth of Cassandra at all in Greek mythology?
No, I'm not.
So to basically explain it in brief, Cassandra is basically, from what I understand, a bit of a gossip in Greek society, likes to talk about who Zeus is shagging that week. And her punishment for having these loose lips, so to speak, is essentially she is cursed to always know the truth and to be like able to prophesize anything. But her curse is that no one will ever listen to her. Mm-hmm. With you being this sort of acolyte for a methodology of days gone past and trying to bring something that it's not like you're reinventing the wheel, because as you're saying, it does come from an RTS age, and it's not necessarily something that you are the founder of. You have learned from others and studied under them to develop almost in a way that a philosopher would. If I'm the student of Immanuel Kant, I will have a synthesis of his philosophy. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily something new, but so you being an acolyte of this methodology that is long gone, do you feel in any way like Cassandra, that like you find it confusing in some way that people aren't listening to you because it's not necessarily new ground that you're stepping on?
I don't know. I mean, it's not that no one listens, right? Obviously,
a lot of people do.
Right, a lot of people do.
It feels like the status quo necessarily.
Right. It's confusing in the sense that there's so much pushback to it. Like, I think one of the things that happened last week was, like, I was arguing about Rumble. I posted the screenshots that after durability patch happened, I said Rumble's broken because you look at his numbers, you look at durability patch, and then you entertain how practical it is that like champions would be able to resist him, and then you entertain how funny it is that Riot even like buffed him, and yet 15 months went by without him getting buffed, and everyone's like, oh well, this is the classic LS. Like, you say enough things, something eventually hits, and then you claim that you're right all the time, and I'm like, okay, well, there's two parts to this. One, The Rumble thing is very well documented because it's on Twitter as like screenshots, right? Claims. It's also in patch rundowns where I talk about it. And the reason I'm saying Rumble is good is in the substance, right? So if you have to take gripe with me saying that Rumble's strong, you have to take gripe with why I'm saying Rumble's strong.
Okay.
Right? That's the main thing. The other thing is if you're saying that I just throw things out there and that I'm wrong about it, where are the things that I'm wrong about? Right? Because they should be able to reference that, especially if it's so plentiful, right? If there's a plethora of these wrong claims and stuff like that. So that stuff's like very frustrating. It's almost nauseating to deal with it because it's almost like I have to always be on in order to combat it. Yeah. People don't realize how draining that is. What's the like language that I can use in this?
As much as you fucking want.
Okay. Well, I mean, these people are retarded. It's like basically like it's the only way. It's the only way. It's the only way to say it. I mean, it really is.
The phraseology that I've always liked to use is syphilitic scabs on the bell end of mankind.
Yes. Okay. Quiet. Yes. No, it's just, it really did burn me out. It's a very big turnoff. It's frustrating. I mean, you try to live in a glass house, which I did, streaming as much as I did, right? Open DMs on everything. I engage with anyone from the public, very well documented from like my Twitter, Discord even, whatever. It's just, I don't know, can't win. So going back to the Cassandra thing, it's not confusing. It's just like
frustrating more so.
I don't know. I guess it's fucking weird, man. It really is just weird. And then I ponder my inability to maybe process it or like understand it, maybe because of like my autism or something. Yeah. But it's just like, it's mind numbing.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, I mean, the bad faith interpretation for anyone watching this interview that potentially isn't a fan of you or a detractor is they're going to immediately assume, oh, this guy's an LS fanboy and he's just enabling the methodology, but. Right. I don't claim to know anything about the game, but I'm more so just looking at it from for me, this question doesn't come from a place of, I don't think I need to agree with you. Right. It's more so just, the methodology is documented, and it doesn't necessarily seem that anyone is actually critiquing...
The methodology, right.
They're more so critiquing the madness of anything.
Yes.
The madness of, people need to understand that numbers is madness. Like, the infinite variables is enough to drive anyone crazy for me. Like...
But again, it's not about if I'm right or wrong. That was never the main point, and they don't get that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Which links into my next question, which is very much on topic for this. I categorize you as someone that I think has a ability to articulate themselves. I think that's part of what made you kind of get a start. And I think that being someone that is able to kind of verbally express themselves in a way is something that is an immense burden. I mean, I'm someone that not to be much, I think I am similar in that way. I can kind of dictate processes in that way. And I think that intelligence in that way sometimes can be an immense burden in that your brain is going 100 miles per hour all the time and it can never slow down. But I wanted to ask, in terms of, and especially leading a mass information intake life that you have always led with StarCraft and all these different things, do you feel like with the natural effects of authority bias and all of these different things, and especially when you talk about this distrust, do you think that your ability to communicate effectively can be to your detriment sometimes?
Can you give me an example?
Well, it would be. I'm trying to think of an example. It's more so like for me, for example, I feel like sometimes because I'm so able to, like you're saying, the idea of being on all the time and ready to go with these people, I feel like my ability, having done that so much, and I can imagine for you even more so being under such direct scrutiny, your ability to kind of work, not to say that you're in a corner for the right reasons, but you are being backed into a corner, your ability to kind of dodge and weave with your language. Do you think that sometimes people might view that as you just being evasive and they don't actually grapple with the claims because what you're saying is, it sounds like you're...
Right. I can't remember who it was. There was some pro player who actually dodged a conversation. There was a clip about it. It was on YouTube, and the chat was asking like why they wouldn't talk to me, and the clip was like something like, oh, there's no point going into a conversation with LS. He'll just outword you. In a way. And then the guy had referenced me as a wordsmith and just said that's just what I do in conversations. Yeah. And that's why it's not good to talk with me. That's always been weird to me, right? Because I've always invited people to talk, right? I've always had people on my streams over the years. I've never dodged anything. The only time that I've ever dodged anything is when I thought that the conversation would be conducted under bad faith. Or if I thought that the person wasn't deserving of like a platform. Right. Which has only ever happened once, right? People can obviously guess what that's referencing. But obviously I dodged like the renecting conversation from like 2 years ago because I just thought that was a bad faith conversation from how it started. But I did have the renecting conversation just with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I wanted to ask you something. I mean, if this is too personal, you can completely cut me off, but I think I've phrased it in a relatively fair way. I mean, you've opened up in the past about, I mean, we referenced it directly in a jokey kind of manner, but some of the kind of abuse that you faced as a young man on the internet, obviously Team Liquid forums, that kind of era. Yeah. And I think obviously you characterise that, and I think it's a completely fair characterisation that these were mistakes that you made to fit in.
Sure.
And I think your utilisation since of that story in a way of trying to shed light on what was acceptable now, and then hoping now that some of these young players will never have to face that kind of abuse from these old men on the internet. Because, I mean, reading back now in my research and going through those threads, it's disgusting that some of these people were able to say these things online.
Oh, you went and read some of it?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, some of them are still around today. So,
yeah, of course.
I thought about it more. I mean, some of them are still around, and not only are they still around, they still write the same stuff, right? I interact with them on Reddit. It's like funny that
I remember there was a guy in chat, I forget what his name was, but the thing was so funny about you. One thing I will say about you, and I don't want to make you self-conscious about it because I want you to keep doing it because it is so fucking hilarious to me, is you'll have a guy in chat that is called Dildo Master 69, but you will refuse to not call him that, almost as if in a weird way you respect him enough to just hear him out and what he's saying.
Yeah.
Which I love. Please don't stop doing that. It's just so funny to hear you say, well, actually, reasonably, ostensibly, you are incorrect, Dildo Master 69, and I actually refute what you're saying. It's just incredible. It's an incredible sort of break from reality in a way. But that has distracted me from the question somewhat. You obviously have opened up about this abuse, and you've talked about how you hope that no young players have to go through any of that because, I mean, I think the landscape is a lot less forgiving of stuff like that, thankfully. And one of the things I respect about you, and I've noted it there, is you're someone that's given me immense joy over the years in terms of your raring ability to just wind up and go at a moment's notice at a guy in chat. Mm-hmm. You know, there'll be someone that says something that doesn't necessarily click with you, and you're ready to go pounce. I'm ready. I'm in the ring.
Yeah.
And I really respect that a lot, but I wondered in any way, and this is not to psychoanalyze you, but I think it was an interesting thing to talk about, is do you think that this sort of, and you talk about constantly feeling like you have to be on and you're constantly engaging with the narrative publicly. I mean, I think you argue more with people that you deem stupid on social media than anyone I've ever seen, which is your God-given right by our Lord and Savior, Elon Musk. But I digress. Your engagement with these people, do you think this engagement with the narrative and trying to constantly feel like you have to justify or defend yourself from a young man to now, does it come back from any residual effects to that time in your life where you felt like constantly you were having to try and, well, hang on a second, I know I fucked up, but I don't think that's quite fair to say about me?
So, I mean, there's a couple of things that, there's a couple of things. One, I don't think I'm more special than, like, other people, and this is, like, there was some reply, like, last week, right? I had made a tweet or something. I was looking for Korean speakers, right? Yeah. And there were some replies saying, like, I don't have to pay people to talk to me because of my stature or something, right? And I said, like, I'm not above other people just because I'm popular in a video game. I don't think that this is the same reason I have open DMs on everything, and it's why I reply to DMs, assuming that the DM is either good enough or even stupid enough, right? Depending on like the context of it. I'll reply to anyone, or I'll talk to anyone, and then depending on how,
as proven by this interview,
depending on what the question is, sometimes in my head I think there's a lot of people that might have the same thought, and so I'm killing multiple birds with one stone, and that's why I choose to answer it or reply to it. And I think in that way it can be good. But in also some ways it lets me practice even answering how, like going through that. And I think that's something that people don't realize is that there's a lot of like co-streamers and content creators and all this other stuff, but there's no one that's actually done as much as me engaging with these types of thought processes and conversations and arguments. I think Max was on like a really good track with doing it, obviously, but it's just too much time doing it. So it definitely helps in that way.
Just go away from everywhere.
Are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Get that fucking mic away from your face, lad.
I just think it's a dick.
That brings me back. One of the gay jokes that we had prepared for this, he literally told me, don't write too many gay jokes because you just don't know. But one of the gay jokes we had that I actually forgot is when I gave you that DVD, I was going to say, we also got you the handcuffs they used to arrest Saviour, but we didn't want to give them to you because you might have used them for something else.
Did they arrest Saviour?
Saviour or Life, I can't remember, in a match fixing.
Someone was, I don't know who they arrested actually.
think it was life and 18 others for something. I think one of them even got like 18 months in prison.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a whole little thing about that. But that's just obviously a gay joke about,
Yeah. I'm not gay, so.
Hey, it's me, Chad from high school. I want to circle back to that 45-minute talk that you had where you didn't understand what you were actually talking about and they actually cut you off. But you were actually talking about a very interesting thing. The implicit advantages North America has over Korea at the start of a game cycle.
Yeah.
Because quite often the game is released early in NA, they have an early start, and the reason for Korea always taking over is if the game gets enough popularity in that country, they will get their own live server, and then through mechanical overbearing, innate, I don't think you can tie it to innate ability, but I mean more so innate cultural infrastructure, they will eventually take over. So I wanted to ask you, based on that, because I think that's very interesting. There are obviously examples that are counterintuitive to this. GR ... I don't know how to say his name, but you spoke about him on screen once. Gur. He's a very good example about that, being a player that was never famed for practicing at body-destroying levels, but instead relying on clever tactics, strategic insight, deep understanding of the game to win. You've characterized in many ways that counterfeit to this, contradicting to this narrative. One of the ways that NA or EU can strike back despite this mechanical overbearing is by having more of an ability to compete on a creative level. Because you say that the North American or the creative mind is more wired to think outside of the box because of strict uniformity. When you think about Korean culture, you're all in the same house, under the same instructor all the time. I mean, you'll know from your time in the... I want to say it wasn't the MVP. You was the MVP house. Yeah. Before that, it was called Project
Pro-S.
Yeah. But during your time there, it's all very much, we're in the same house, I want to practice this much of a matchup versus you, and it's kind of building a hive mind, central neural network, all stemming from the initial point. So a lot of the times, they won't have the ability to think outside of the box, much like you were talking about earlier, is one of the things you count yourself before. If we subscribe to this theory, which I think holds a lot of weight, if we think back to this 2019 era of G2, probably the best Western team, arguably from my perspective, maybe you disagree with that, but... You were going crazy at this time, I remember very specifically, about public narrative, LCK, not building correctly, not thinking outside of the box, and I think you were one of the forerunners of this is going to come back to hurt you guys, and through years of, it's like this Cassandra-like moment, the flood is coming, guys, adapt or drown, and we saw a G2, although they didn't win Worlds, they won that MSI, they competed heavily and deep into the tournament. They're not the most insanely mechanical team we've ever seen. I think if you rate them best in slot, although a lot of people might think counter to this, I'd like to get your more respected opinion on this. I don't think they necessarily would be considered as competing in best against the best in slot on a mechanical raw level. But they still competed and dominated MSI through a unique way of playing the game, different approach, draft, kind of breaking through that learned muscle memory. So is this the way to keep up? I don't want to ask you about why we haven't returned to that model, because I think that's very well documented. I think it's a lazy question that gets asked quite a lot, because I think the reasons are well documented through administration and not wanting to go there. And we've also gone through that in the thing. And I think one of the reasons is also as well, G2 had Fnatic, which was very much their Samsung Blue to their Samsung White at the time, which no one ever talks about. I want to ask you this eternal facade, which is kind of, I don't know, have you ever played Dark Souls at all?
No, never.
So in Dark Souls, in the first game, to briefly bring you into the lore, the fame has faded, and in the lore of this universe, this flame is kept alight to sort of transmit prosperity across the nation. And as it sort of dwindles towards the end of the age, darkness seeps into the land.
Right.
But there is this son of the original flame bearer who essentially transfixes his land under this fake flame to ensure that there is a facade of prosperity. So it's actually decrepit, and when you wipe it past, you can see the decrepit nature of it. But it feels like, apt to this metaphor, that there is a sort of facade of golden age that we kind of transmit in regards to this. It's a very long-winded question, I apologise. But this eternal facade that we can keep up on a pure hands basis, is this a result of some sort of super ego drive? Or, because in a way it feels like the physical race that is being laid out in front of us, we succumb to the demands of the track rather than think about any shortcuts sometimes.
Wait, what is the... What? Where are we going with this question exactly?
We're going in a lot of fucking directions, lad. Buckle up, Sonny Jim. Get a fucking seatbelt on.
Okay, what is the what?
I'll admit it. I wanted to sound very wordy on this, and I haven't drafted it down. But I'll re-ask the question, because now we've seen I'm a genius, and I've asked that in such a way that is so utterly incomprehensible. But much like Hillisang, I am beyond human understanding. Deep Blue IBM.
Oh yeah.
If you get a chess engine to understand what I just said, then we'd be having a different conversation. But next to someone that is so lowly and sort of unable, But I'll break it down at a level like someone like you can understand. G2 is a team, we characterize them as having kept up through a degree of creativity.
Sure.
We attempt to keep up this facade somehow in the West that we can keep up on a hands basis. Lots of people try. Why is that? Because I don't want to go into the reasons of administration or anything like this.
Why do we stop?
Why do we attempt to compete on a hands level basis? Does it come from a pure ego standpoint? If creativity is the solution...
Well, people don't see creativity as the solution.
But it's documented, much like, I mean, we're going back to the point before.
It doesn't, I think it doesn't matter if it's documented. So this number might actually be wrong. In reality, this number might actually be wrong. But I think that, like, the percentage of, like, players who want to play, like, a control aspect in, like, a TCG or something, I think it's very low. I think, like, the people that gravitate towards that play style, I think it's actually very, very low.
Yeah.
And what that suggests is that, like, even though it's a very demonstrated way of being able to play the game, it's very viable, right? It gives you more options. It has more skill expression.
Yeah.
It has less variance. And it's all documented. It's all demonstrated. For some reason, people don't gravitate towards it. It's not what people want to do. And I think that in League of Legends, it's the same exact way, especially you're conditioned to not want to be that way because of solo queue. Because the very nature of solo queue
goes back to the Annie, not wanting to play Annie.
Right, exactly. People don't want to do that. So you're already talking about a very small percentage of people that, one, would find that enjoyable.
Yeah.
Two, be wanting to do it too, right? In addition to finding it enjoyable. And then three, like, also acknowledging and understanding that it's actually better, right? These are, like, pretty hard markers to hit. The other thing is that it's very easy, and I always talk about this, publicly, like, social conformity is a very prevalent thing in our scene, where pro players just won't pick up other champions until another pro player has played the champion. So we see this all the time, right? I've tweeted about the Rumble counters at Worlds for, I don't know how long. We just saw one come out yesterday, right? We saw Rise finally played by KT. Which was, I mean, even though it came out, it was also, like, interesting in that, like, Keen takes Scorch, even though the idea should never be to have Scorch and should be Gathering Storm because you're not picking Rise to beat Rumble in lane. You're picking to neutral. Like, things like this. Again, it goes back to the substance of why you're doing things rather than the result or whatever. But people don't engage with that. And that's why there's no progression.
I think it's very interesting because, I mean, to go back to I think it's good to keep a thread line here because a lot of things that Bippo said to me previously are very interesting for this. And I know that you had him on his stream recently. Actually, the day after we interviewed him, it was quite funny because he was on your stream.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things that he talked about is that he feels like his perspective, and he quizzed me on the spot. He was like, what was I most known for when I first played? And I was racking my brains. I didn't know. Playing Rise bot, like breaking Soaz's hand. Joke. One of the things he broke it down for me is, like, I was the guy that TP'd bot all the time.
Yeah.
And he broke down the reason for this is because he VOD reviewed all of his games because obviously in the lead up to being the main top laner, he sat there thinking, I'm going to get my chance, watching all the games. He was like, well, hang on, if I get my bot laner lead, they fucking win. So fuck convention. I'm thinking outside the box. And it's like you're saying, he's able to look and make a path from the deer between the headlights and actually analyze them and further that out.
Right.
But I was asking about that, where does that come from? And he was saying, because we tied it back to the games he's played before, Call of Duty, things like this guy was always the guy that would pick things that would piss people off. He's the noob tube, one-man army, last stand guy. And in any game that he was playing with his brother, he was always like, I don't necessarily want to compete with you on a hands level. And he said this. He doesn't feel like he needs to compete with Eastern top laners on a hands level because he will always think outside the box in that way.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying about people don't want to play control, and I was thinking, where does this come from? Because that's a personality-driven thing. If he's thinking about, because his initial standpoint is he wants to piss people off. So finding someone that is so dedicated to pissing people off, because that might be one of the foundational points, is the wanting and desire to annoy other people, which is a relatively difficult thing to find. I mean, I'm sure that it can come from other places, but
No, so there's that, and also, just to go back to something we talked about earlier in the interview, is like what Bippo's saying, he doesn't want to compete on a hands level, he wants to find edges from other things. That's why it goes back to, it's so weird that there's this constant labeling of my philosophy in the assumption that I assume that the people are robots, when it's the opposite. It has nothing to do with trying to play hands, right? Nothing to do with that, right? You have to be robotic to want to play hands. Whereas the invert, it doesn't make sense. It's like the people don't even realize the irony when they're labeling me.
Genuinely, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm trying to work
weird.
that out in my head.
It's ironic.
To want to play robotic is to play with hands.
Yes.
I understand, I feel, but break it down for me. Like TLDR, ELR.
Well, of course, if you have insane hands, then yeah, you'll play the most robotically demanding things because you have the hands. But when you're trying to just play a knowledge-based things, you give yourself more forgiveness. You have less variance because the champions, you'll just fall on them with gravity. There's just so many more things that are lining up for you to do less than your opponents. You have less demand out of you. You have less onus on you. So it's the opposite of what people claim that I claim.
It's very interesting because I think you can draw a sort of a vertical metaphor with chess, for example, because with chess, you can see from the era of Paul Morphy, where it's a lot of creativity, when you get to the modern age, which is loads of 12-year-olds on their computer learning the openings and plotting out the first 50 moves, there's no adaptation. That is to play with hands, but sort of a lot of these players that have creativity, maybe a bad analogy because I feel like creativity is kind of faded in. Actually, it's not, because I found the way to tie it in there. I felt like I was drowning there. But one of the things that was interesting is when Alpha Zero came out, and a lot of those AI chess things with machine learned built by Google is contrary to what we thought. We thought chess is so boring now because you plot it out and there's not really that much creativity and it's built on relative stratums. The thing that was so interesting about Alpha Zero is it made, when you analyzed it, Tal-esque moves. Ridiculous sacrifices that made no sense, but it would eventually end up winning. So in some way, through that gratuitous grind, creativity was back in a certain sense.
Yep.
It's very, very interesting that you speak about that, because that roboticism that is to rely on hands and to move around that is, it is, wow. I'm kind of in awe. I'd never really thought about it like that. I feel like I'm really just sucking off your philosophy right now.
It's a deep rabbit hole
literally.
to go down. Yeah, it's very fun.
I'm fucking swallowing pills right now. I feel like I'm
wonderful.
One of these NA LCS players at a fucking EDM festival or something.
What is going on,
This guy makes a living from talking.
I know, but I get so excited. I'm sorry. You can tell me to shut the fuck up, by the way, if you feel like you're
The thing is, Jake, that long question was really good, but if you just split that in three, the first point.
But also, it was almost like there was three questions in one. That's why I didn't know what the fuck.
Yeah, I think that was the problem. It was written as three questions, but I just read
that's
it.
why I'm like, where do you want me to answer?
But stop fucking.
He starts playing with his hair, going he wants to say something.
No, but I do think that there will be an element of comedy there. That was quite funny. But also, stop fucking VOD reviewing me while I'm doing this live. We're not in the fucking VOD right now, mate. Get the fucking EpiPen out.
I know you can do the criticism.
Oh, of course. No, I'm fuming. Yeah.
This is our second time doing long form, but the questions are great. The guy makes a living.
You see, he always pumps me up at the end. He shits on me, then pumps me up at the end.
That's the way to do it, actually.
That's the way to do it, yeah.
Just like a domestic relationship.
I feel like we're fucking married, genuinely. The way that we...
I nearly made him literally hang himself, but it was good.
It was good.
This guy will say to me...
We're into BDSM too.
I will annoy him, and he'll be like, just wait. It's coming back to you soon. 3 days later, I will be in such a bad position mentally, and he'd be like, I'm going to push you until you hang yourself. It is dark. This guy...
He spent 3 hours annoying me. I was like, Jake, I've just won 7 solo queue games in a row. You're not going to tilt me. And I said to him, when you're mentally in the bin, all this energy you put to me is coming back to you. And this morning, I even sent a message on Discord.
He broke me. He broke me this morning. It was bad.
Okay.
It's bad. Anyway, back to it. Are you recording?
Yeah. By the way, that point on the blue style comps having more leeway.
Yeah, I think there's a number. I want to say it's 9%. I want to say that there's some poll that Wizards did to Magic, right? There was some poll. I want to say it's 9%, which is disturbingly low. Amount of people want to play blue, which is control, right? But I'm not confident that that's the exact number. I just remember seeing it, but yeah.
Do you think, with the comparison to that, because there is no necessarily hands aspect to that game, that playing the red style comp in that game is different to League? Because in League you play the red, your hands get involved, your mechanics get involved, whereas in that game you play the red, it's just where you chips forward.
So poker. There's actual psychology in poker that one of the main reasons that like people at the casino actually play poker is the scooping action. There's like dopamine released when they scoop the chips.
When you hear the chips and
when you hear the chips and when you scoop the chips towards yourself, there's an actual like study. I can't remember if it was Stanford or like I want to say it was Stanford did it. There's a scooping. The scooping action is what causes people to go back to the casino and play poker, or something like that, right? Which is like really interesting. Now, my logic would be like why people play red or like why people play creature-based decks in like card games is because you have to touch the cards. You have to like physically touch them and tap them to like attack, right? Control deck doesn't touch cards. It just fucking shuffles its hand and like doesn't do anything, right? Just says no to the opponent, like.
It's like putting your finger on someone's head.
Yeah, you just say "fuck you," like, like no, you can't do that. Actually, like, you know. So maybe that's an aspect of it. I'm not sure. I mean, I would be fascinated in like the psychology of it. But.
Do you think that's why people are so incensed by your philosophy that it does stem from a point of I'm really fucking annoying and it's your problem?
Me?
No, just like the whole control play style is like, I'm really fucking annoying and now it's your problem.
Well, I don't think people like being told that like what they have isn't good enough or they can be better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
in general, like just in life, I think.
Well, imagine. Okay, so you know, this is gonna sound really fucking weird. Like, you know, like the whole like. What is it on social media? Like the body positivity thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's like
I'm a big part of that.
So the body positivity thing, and then you have like the influencers or the people that like try to like shame it, saying that like it should never be glorified.
Yeah.
Or that the body positivity is like should not happen in the first place because it's not body positivity. It's whatever. Imagine that was aimed at people that were actually just normal, like BMI.
Yeah.
Right. That's ultimately, I guess, kind of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know? Like, actually, you need an 8-pack, and you need muscles.
That is the most tremendous self-serving analogy.
Right?
You've essentially, what you're saying there in no uncertain terms is, oh, you're drafting Renekton? Get to the gym, fatty. Like, that is incredible.
No, but I could imagine that would be why it pisses most people off.
Yeah.
Imagine you tell, like, a perfectly normal, like, you know, just normal person, like, actually, hey,
yeah,
you could be better. Like, actually, you're not, you know?
It'd be like, you could look so much better on stage.
Yes.
But not outside of game, in game.
Yeah. I guess that because that would obviously piss off the average person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
or if someone's, like, relatively, like, you know, fit, and you're like, well, actually, you're still not fit enough.
That must piss people, yeah.
That would
and when they
people
put
off.
so much effort into already being good.
Right. And you're like, actually, you're still not doing things. And then you can demonstrate it, but then they don't care about your demonstration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's an analogy.
I think that's a really good way to go from my question. Yeah. My next question is, we went and read an interview you did fucking almost like close to 2 decades ago, where there's a quote that you really enjoy from Jinro's retirement, where he talks about Nada's and Boxer's career, DVD.
Yeah.
Where did you find the ability to dream again? Which I think is a very powerful quote, because it's basically you're using it in the context of explaining that you yourself as a competitor at the time have become complacent somewhat. You feel as if the very same fuel that had dragged you to career in the first place, despite having nothing, has kind of dwindled. And I think this hunger is something that isn't spoken about poetically enough, because we speak about the intangibles and how actually you are someone that approaches emotion. Because for me, it's less about idealization of your peers or the people you look up to in the scene. It's more, for me, it's the true nature of competition, which is that you have no time to kind of look up and look at these statues that are casting massive shadows in inspiration, because the reason you can't look up is because the water is rising and you need to get to their level or you'll drown. Mm-hmm. So my question would be, with a West that is characterized by a lot of LCS players who are born out of trust funds, comfortability, these kind of environments, in no attempt to create a kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps straw man out of you and your personal experience, do you feel as if this ability to dream but be present in the moment is something that is necessary to achieve the highest level in the game?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, is it just a yes or no question? Like, I don't know how.
With how fucking long that was, I fucking hope not.
I
guess the question more so just relates to hunger. Like, I feel like the way in which you spoke about hunger there is so different to how we speak about work ethic, Western work ethic, and all the paradigms that I think get lazy and give a lot of people evasion. I think a lot of people will be looking at this NA quarterfinals win, and will be looking at it like, oh, we've evaded criticism for another year.
Right. So I think like I think really good example of things like this is you can always tell sort of like the foundations or the building blocks of like a good player when you hear them talk. That is a really big thing. Now, again, you need, the skill set to understand what you're actually listening to or seeing in the first place, right? Discernibility. Discernibility is really important because if you were to have two professionals sit on stage and you have an audience, if the audience can't discern who's right or wrong, then it doesn't matter. If there's a debate happening, it doesn't matter if both people are talking about the same topic. There's no discernibility, so it wouldn't matter. So I think like in this regard, like one of the things that I've always said for many years is, and I think people are like really noticing this right now because of his Korean solo queue run, was always really adamant. Like Nemesis was just one of the best. He was just one of the best players like in the world. And it was very apparent from one, you hear how he talks about the game, and then two, you watch his first-person view. And I think that when you combine those two things and you have discernibility, it's very apparent. But he had all these negative narratives about him that, again, when you dive into the substance, not the actual just surface-level claim itself, the substance shows that people without discernibility can't actually converse about the substance, right? And that's where the problem lies. And, now you see his second trick.
Well, I mean, all of these difficult to play with narratives is, we have Forgiven to blame for them.
But, so, it's funny, right?
In the sense of, that was really the first example of difficult to work with from a place of passion, but obviously that was backed up by more actual incursions of him being like, it's not necessarily what he was saying, but how he was saying it. But now I feel like that, as a brand, is just tossed around and we just assume what the ramifications are without ever actually exploring them to the full extent.
Sure. And so basically, to conclude like the question about like dreaming plus hunger and stuff like that, I think it's very important to, one, have the ability to be able to describe what it is that you're trying to do and then pushing towards achieving it.
Yeah.
And it stems from that bird's eye view, right?
Yeah.
And then also having like the ability to actually push towards it, right? And I think that there are players that did have that, but then they burn out. They don't have the fuel to do it anymore. And then because they don't have the fuel to do it, then they slowly just get worse or they plateau and nothing happens, right? And I think that's where the problems can come in.
It is interesting in a sort of metaphorical sense how when you talk about this, you made me think with the bird's eye view and pulling the map out and being able to not be so zoomed in, locked in. It is almost like there is a degree of imagination, and it feels like with burnout and stuff like this, it is our ability. You go from a point of being able to visualize to being almost have aphantasia, the inability to use your mind's eye.
Well, one of the things, this has actually happened a lot this Worlds, right? That's been really frustrating to me is I've read lots of Reddit threads and obviously like Twitter and like DMs and other stuff like this, like arguments about like various analysis, right? And someone's like, like, oh, well, this is wrong because of A, B, and C. Or someone says, X, Y, and Z, and this is why it's right and stuff like that. And it's just making me think, like, you can't tell if it's wrong or not because there's no discernibility. You can't engage with the substance to discern who's right or wrong. You're just deciding who's right or wrong based on who you like more.
Yeah.
And that is something that also heavily guides the scene. It's just who someone likes more. That's all it comes down to. And that's really frustrating to me, and it's why I've always advocated over the years for willingness to demonstrate the claim, right? So everyone's always said to me about like, various things that I've said, whether it be champions, items, runes, whatever. That's why I always pull it up on stream, right? Okay, you're saying that this is wrong. Well, here's the freeze frames, why it's right. Tell me why it's wrong, right? And that's how I actually made a lot of the friendships that I did over the years, right? There were certain G2 players, notably Perks, right?
Yeah.
Perks, there's a famous clip of Perks flaming me. And then, Perks has been on my stream several times since, and I've actually helped him out several times, like behind the scenes now, with like champion stuff and gameplay stuff and whatever. And it wasn't until like I invited him to just tell me what it is that he actually thinks is wrong with what I'm saying in certain freeze frames. And an inability to do so says something in itself.
Yeah.
And again, it's the bird's eye. Because
when you attach that, you're like, oh, this is an emotion, this isn't logic.
Right, it's not logic, right?
Yeah.
And for me, though, I'm so burned out of doing it. And it's just so fucking sickening doing it all the time. And
well, I think it's what we were talking about before. I can imagine having had to do that for almost 15, 18 years
right,
of
and
your
then
life.
being attacked for it.
Yeah.
Because there's not other people. Because it's a really dumb thing to do. It's easier to be politically correct and just never say that anyone's fucking up.
Would you feel cowardly if you did that?
Well, it doesn't make any fucking sense to me to do.
Yeah.
I don't.
So it doesn't
understand.
necessarily come from a place of feeling like you have a responsibility. It's just like that logically is the right thing to do.
It's not even about right or wrong. It's what comes natural.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just what comes natural. Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I've always acknowledged, and I've said it time and time again, it is objectively better to just be politically correct, and no one does anything wrong. Everyone's playing well League of Legends. Hype everyone up, talk about...
And the irony would then be that if you did that, then people would be more willing to actually listen.
to whatever it is that I'm saying, regardless of the accuracy of it. And that is what's so disgusting.
I think that's what I was getting at with my question earlier about how do you sometimes...
It's not about accuracy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's not. It's never been about accuracy. And that's what has enraged me in conversations from behind the scenes. And I've had some not so nice conversations with some, some team owners where I've gotten very upset, and I've asked them some, multi-layered questions about how can you even tell what's being said.
Oh, he's tricking me with his Socratic method.
Yeah. So
this fucking guy.
This guy is just being an asshole.
Him and his fucking logical layered lateral thinking, man. Yeah.
I don't know.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy being us.
I hate my life. It's fine.
He says on the 20th floor.
Yeah. It's fine. Going out the window soon, don't worry.
It's a long fall.
It really is. I made sure of that,
There's a really good film, I don't know if you're into films at all, but there's a really good film called Lahane, where one of the scenes is this guy falling.
Did you just say Lahanes? Like, what is...
Lahane.
Add an S, you got Lahanes.
Actually, that's a good content idea for Gen G if you want to appeal to any foreign fans.
I'm going next first. But...
You're gonna fly over like fucking Batman, like the Caped Crusader.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the drafts. I've got to come in and help.
You saw the down Batman image is good. Then other people try to use it. It always fails.
I saw fucking like some company
chess.com.
Yeah.
Chess.com used it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, we started with Alpha Zero.
You've stopped my fucking tangent here. What was it? There's a film called Lahane where there's a really famous scene where he's falling off a skyscraper and he keeps, as he's dropping, he keeps going. Falling.
Yeah.
And he's just constantly he's trapped in this moment of transitorily falling. Unfortunately, I don't know what the metaphor was going because you cut me off. But so now we've just got an anecdote.
Sounds like Project Ash.
Now we've just got. Please don't put add Project Ash on my platform. Because the idea that guy has been lifted up.
I love him, man. I actually do.
He is just if he didn't exist, we'd have to make him up. Do you know what I mean? He's just an absolute mythological creature.
Couldn't even make him up. What do you mean?
For me,
yeah,
perfect coaching candidate. If
I did coach him,
but if he in that period of time where you were just getting the biggest cabal of weirdos and freaks, like the freak show era of LS coaching, he would have been wonderful for that.
The snapping turtle.
The snapping turtle.
That guy was good.
The things you would have said to him, because we spoke about this off camera, like some of the anecdotal ways that you would refer to coaching subjects.
Oh, it was
I
different.
won't repeat. It was different. It was a different landscape.
Well, Twitch had different TOS back then.
Yeah?
Yeah. There used to be words that are, they're banned now, but they used to not be.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
I remember when simp was just the word for a woman's vagina looking like Homer Simpson.
I didn't even know that.
You wouldn't, to be fair. Neither would I, to be fair. All right, cool. Next, leading on from that question, we kind of spoke about that hunger, but I wanted to touch a little bit on the system. It's not necessarily an original thought to me. I spoke to my friend Michael about this a decent amount, veteran, and one of the things that he gave me as perspective that I'd never really considered about is the difference between even NA and EU in terms of pursuing a pro career. Is in NA, there are so many socio-economic factors you have to consider considering the landscape that a lot of the times, I don't think this is talked about at all. A lot of NA kids that make it will be from pretty well-off families that are able to transition and support them into that kind of lifestyle. And I think potentially we lose people through the cracks in the system that might not otherwise be able to pursue that pro career. Whereas in EU, for example, you can drop out of university, be on state benefits, take a little bit of time out and then go back to university. Whereas in NA, it's didn't go to university, you didn't make it, good luck in fucking McDonald's, buddy. Do you know what I mean? If you have any sort of other things, health related or anything like that. fuckery do. Like, you know, it's all over.
In NA, it actually, and again, I mean, I don't know every single pro player on a personal level, but like one of the really funny things that I know it's a joke sort of behind the scenes is that like Busio is the only super normal like pro player.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's actually the case. It's just like I know it's like a joke with some pro players that like Busio comes from like super healthy household, like totally normal everything, and like every other pro player, it seems like there was a reason they were playing 16 hours a day, like League of Legends, and you know.
Mom and Dad didn't take me to the fair.
Yeah, and NA is it always seems like there's a reason the pro players are playing League.
My parents are divorced.
Yeah, I mean,
boo-hoo, mate. Like,
yeah, there you go.
You know what I mean? Like,
So yeah.
Please get back together. Need that. Not even going to get into that. Fucking hell. It's a can of worms. Mm-hmm. You know what you've done to me. Sorry. Thinking now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not quite at the level of ideologue fury when it comes to this game as the man behind the camera. I mean, this is a man... Regan's off camera. You all know what he looks like, so he doesn't need to be in front of the camera. But
it's the name of the girl from The Exorcist.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's
what he's named after.
You were a bit of an exorcist to me recently.
When was your birthday? Go ahead and say it. Say it was.
I was born on Friday the 13th.
Friday the.
Wait, my God!
Hold on. When?
November the 13th.
November
98.
Okay, hold on.
This
November
is
the 13th.
What's about to happen?
Wait, hold on. Give me a second here. Hold on.
This is bad.
Give me one.
I don't want to go home with you after this if this is true.
When?
I feel like you're going to say this and he's going to evaporate into smoke.
98. Okay, it doesn't. All right, no, it doesn't count.
Oh, fucking thank God.
I was trying to see if it lined up, like the 9 months lined up with like The Exorcist. It's fine. Doesn't matter.
Oh, you thought his parents were fucking...
like Shaq into The Exorcist.
That would explain a lot about you. Yeah, we had a bit of a camera issue. Battery went out. I talk a lot. Apologies. We're back into it now, though. Here comes the star man. All right. You are a bit of a David Bowie figure. Really.
I don't know what the
You've
hell
had
that means.
multiple eras.
Have I? I've been around. I'm going on 2 decades almost. So.
Yeah, almost.
Almost.
34 has never looked better.
What? Yeah, asshole. No. How old do you... Wait, do you know how old I am?
No.
How old do you think?
Oh, what a vain question.
28. You're saying that because I've been around so long.
Yeah. I'm not saying it just off how you look. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know. What he wants is you to say what it's...
Yeah, how old do you think I look?
Yeah.
Before 25.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, I cheat a lot.
Are you not happy with that?
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cheat a lot, yeah.
Were you saying cheating keeps you young?
No. Well, of course, no. I get the.
I thought you meant something else.
No.
I thought you meant the thrill of cheating is what keeps you young.
No. I get the. I mean, I talk about this on the stream. I get the polynucleotide injections. Sorry.
Yeah. I just need to get some of those for me. Fucking hell. Take a few years off me.
You don't be any bigger on the cheeks, man.
No, it's not fillers. It's like the best way that I can describe it is like it's like kind of like stem cell.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't trust any of that. They're going to come up with a new Don Jake in 3 months.
What?
It's going to be a clone. There's a clone out there of you. That's the new LS for C9.
That's it, actually. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
But we were speaking about off camera. Speaking about Malice a little bit and how he's someone that you put a lot of effort into and potentially is in a position where he's not really playing anymore. But we talked about the what if of what he could have been potentially.
Yep.
And it's awkward for me to talk about him because he is a friend of mine. But I'm sure he won't mind us debating that. But yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, where do you think he would be? Because we kind of touched on it a little bit.
No, I mean Malice as a player is obviously exceptional. I think it's like, again, going back to the thing where if you know what you're watching and you know what you're paying attention to and you know what you're listening to, then it's impossible to not realize how good he is as a player, right?
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to discernibility, and so I don't think that has ever really been contested by like top players that have engaged with him, right?
Yeah.
So he obviously has a really poor reputation in solo queue and whatnot, and he has like his solo queue cycles where he goes on breaks, plays like Path of Exile, and does all this other type of stuff. But yeah, Malice is like one of definitely the big what ifs. If he ever did really just care about like never typing, just playing, solo queue, and then again also if he even cared about playing pro, because he's another one of those players that he didn't want to play pro unless it was like in a really constructed environment. Yeah,
well, which makes it a shame in some way, not to touch on the C9 controversy in any way, but I think it's an important thing, as we talked about it before, the stubbornness to not think outside the box, because I think he is a player that he came to C9 Academy, played in an initial, I think the thought process is to set up a kind of, he's an understudy to Blabber.
Yeah.
He's going to teach and make more versatile Blabber's play style, because what Malice brings to the table is something that Blabber might be lacking in some ways. But in that C9 Academy, it almost felt like the way in which that team is demanded to play, you can imagine with so many of those players, I mean, Copy's not playing fucking control.
Mm-hmm.
You ask him to basically facilitate a style that is, our jungler plays these champions, he's not going to play anything meta, and we need to adapt the way that we play entirely. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the path was always going to be hard for him to get into pro just because of what he demands a change by presence in the way that a team operates?
Yeah,
maybe that's a mischaracterization.
No, I mean, yeah, I think naturally he won't work or he won't fit in unless people are going to be malleable to him.
Yeah.
Or he slots into a team that is stacked deck.
Yeah.
And I think that's just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess in some ways, like on that academy team, he is somewhat thrown under the bus, but he was willing to do it because he thought,
yes,
I serve a further utilitarian purpose within the team structure.
Right, correct.
Cool. Anyway, that's a little tangent about Malice. I forget what we were even talking about before, but we were talking about the massive ideologue behind the camera, Regan. Mm. And then we did the tangent about him being they're named after The Exorcist, and the whole thing about when your parents had sex based on when you were conceived. Which I realised a few years ago, I'm born in March, which means my parents were getting on in the sticky heat of the summer.
That's weird. March births are like, what even is that?
What year? What month?
September. I'm normal. I'm a Christmas kid.
That's wholesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
wholesome.
It's not really wholesome. Basically, my dad got convinced his mom to lie to my grandmother, woman. Have you ever heard of her on stream?
I've heard of woman.
That bitch. So
we need to get an interview with her.
Yeah.
That's all this is.
Yeah.
For.
You gotta take a flight to Rhode Island. I can hook it up. You know.
That would actually be the best thing ever. And we get you on the cam in the middle, just fact checking all that she says. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Let's calm down.
We could organize it.
What state is that?
Rhode Island. It's the smallest one. It's southeast of New York.
Yeah.
Or like, wait, is it southeast of New York? Well, kind of. It's east of New York.
Somewhere.
It's at the top, innit? Yeah.
It's at the top right. Yeah. South of Maine.
You want to go conduct that yourself?
I'm down.
Fine.
Wait, where are you from?
So he's
originally from London, but I live in the US now.
Really?
I just kind of.
Wait, where in the US?
Pardon?
Where?
This is where it gets complicated.
I work on cruise ships. I go to different cruise ships, so I don't have a place to stay. But my girlfriend lives in New Jersey, which is obviously.
Oh, yeah, you're right next to Rhode Island. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, New Jersey is
we'll
3-hour ride. Yeah.
Fucking hell, that could be good. But speaking of Regan, he is an ideologue in terms of like he gets angry at the game. I mean, I'll tell you an anecdote. When they locked in Alistar on Fnatic the other day, this man stood up in the Riot press room, got up through his seat, and literally shouted, "That is disgusting," in front of everyone. And immediately, LCK journalists, LPL, just looking at him like, "What the fuck? Like, what? We're working here." So I wanted
he's working
to.
Too.
Yeah,
he's trying to preach. It sounds like
he's fucking preaching. We're going to church. Like, if the saints come, anyway. So I got really possessed by the Holy Spirit there. That's crazy. But I wanted to ask. I mean, we kind of went into Cassandra metaphor before, but with draft being something that is so, it feels like. I mean, you're known for bringing other hobbies into your kind of cerebral umbrella of explanation, I think would be fair to say. Poker, even chess at one point. I actually remember a Facebook post you did in 2015 where you were asking for players that had ever reached above 2k elo because you wanted to find a corroboration between that innate level of skill and being able to pick up the game. But these are games, I mean, poker there's too much luck and variance in it for it to be too much probability variance in it for it to truly boxed in and solved. But obviously, with the right mathematical approach, it goes more so from being a stock market to a fruit machine.
No, to my knowledge, No Limit Hold'em was just solved recently.
Really?
I believe so. I believe it might have only been 6 max or it might have been full table. I was watching the documentary on it not too long ago. I think it's an hour and a half long. Yeah, I think a bot. So we know that Limit Hold'em was beat. They invited like 30 pros out to, I want to say it was Pittsburgh. I don't know how long ago. But I think that No Limit Hold'em was also just beat.
Fucking hell.
So,
well, actually, that completely answers the question.
Listen, all I'm going to say, though, is that Alpha Zero failed to beat StarCraft, so that's all,
And it beat Dota, so you can tell,
StarCraft is just actually the superior. Now, they will make the claim, though, that it was, like, restricted, right? And that's why it failed to beat it. But, like, still.
Yeah, well, in any case, with poker and then even chess, like chess is something we haven't fully solved yet. But even like I said earlier with the Alpha Zero thing, we continue to push the boundaries.
We had Alpha Zero, and then we had like Alpha something. Then we had Leela.
And then the whole thing with
then we had Stockfish.
Leela was crazy.
Leela was nuts. Then we had Stockfish, and now
because
we're
the whole thing with Stockfish initially, it was like they were like, well, actually, we weren't running on our fullest capacity engine when we played Alpha Zeros. They were like, let me cook. Like, let me get back to the drawing board.
So it's like Stockfish 9, and then there's Tyler 1.
I've got to give you respect for that. That was insane. That was insane. He is the new. But fucking hell. That's good.
Thank you.
That's good. You could do our next interview. You could be the host. You got some good jokes there on the fly. Fucking hell. But chess is obviously not solved, but we're constantly pushing the boundaries of like it being beyond an inconceivable understanding.
Yeah.
So my point is, with draft having a lot of variables, it does feel like we can push it, not necessarily even by computers, but just like by actual humanity. We can push it to a relatively imperfect perfection.
Sure.
Do you agree with that? And then my follow-on question, well, do you agree with that first as a statement, so I don't make sure I don't fly too many questions at you?
In that like humans
in that we can imperfectly perfect it to an almost not quite solved level, because it feels like it would be impossible to solve draft.
So I haven't actually looked deep enough to know like how close is like Magnus and Hikaru and stuff to like the highest level bots. I think I saw something where like the game started and Hikaru was down 2 pawns and he still lost, or like was a stalemate, and that's like. So
so the way that it works in chess is a pawn is like 100. You equate to MMR, and then obviously like I think a piece is like bishop is 3.2 or 3.3 I think, and then horse is 3 flat. So that's like a 400 difference. And I think from what I remember, like some of the competition Stockfish, someone in the comments will flame me for this, but I think it's the highest players in the world operate around a 2800 level, 2850. I think Magnus at some point is pushed to 2900 but never reached it. I think chess engines, even some of the weaker ones that you can buy open source, are at like 3500. I want to say 3,400, 3,500. Okay. So yeah, you would need a severe disadvantage to be able to make up for that in peace.
Okay, well, that's nuts.
That could be completely incorrect, by the way. But we'll go away and we'll add a little annotation.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, do you think that, for me, with something being so rigid, but obviously having a degree of creativity in it, and one of the things you spoke about, a lot of people, there's another false narrative, people said, oh, LS can't win the draft competition if they did one in good faith, because you would always not consider what a player can play, which is actually not necessarily true. You would play to the strengths of what you had.
Right. That's also demonstrated even by my time at C9.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
I was very open that I didn't want to draft the champions that we drafted, right? Yeah. Like the Atrox versus Team Liquid.
Yeah.
I didn't want Atrox. I wanted a different champion.
Well, you're getting Summit to play champions you didn't even know existed.
Right. Yeah. So, there's that. There's a lot of things. So many false narratives that just they aren't real about me, and it doesn't help that there's people in the scene that help perpetuate them that are also reputable figures.
Yeah,
and that's also like almost disturbing to me. Yeah.
I don't want to harp on that, because then it feels like I'm just creating an echo chamber for you to sort of stand up against the spotlight.
Yes.
Which is, I'm not here to be some sort of LS show. I feel like I'm being slowly converted into... This is what happens, you see. You fly to Korea, you speak to LS for 2 hours, and I feel like, I'm going to leave here, some sort of member of a... I'm never going to be the same again. Yeah. But to get back to the question, when you can... Is there any room for personal preference in draft? Obviously, because for me, it feels like if you consider these tangibles, human comfort, what pieces you have in a team, it feels like a clash of styles should be less about a battle of 2 schools, but rather an ever-adapting battlefield under one roof.
Yeah, and that in and of itself is a style.
Yeah.
Right? It's a complete mastery, almost.
I mean, more so, I feel like draft is characterized by like, oh, I want to do an LPL-style draft, or actually, I want to play an LCK-style draft, whereas in reality,
I don't see it like that, and I never really have. I've always just seen it as it's bad or it's good. Like, it makes sense here, it doesn't make sense.
Do you think there is objectivity to draft?
Based on what the champions can do, yeah.
Okay.
Or, like, what the champions want to do. I think there is an objectivity. I do acknowledge concessions in draft based on player tendencies and likelihood to win depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's one of the most hammer to my head, ice pick to my eye, like, mind-blowing thoughts that the Western teams always seem to have, where they always draft for lane phase against the Eastern teams. Like, oh, we got to get an advantage early. We got to get an advantage early. We got to get an advantage early. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. The likelihood that you could get an advantage early, and then the conversion of that to be able to then end the game with aforementioned advantage, is one, so unlikely because of the way that laning phase is, and the way that, things can be played around in the early stages of the game. But then the development to convert early game type teams into closing is also so skill expressive and intensive, right? It's almost robotic, right? The irony again.
Yeah.
That why would you ever do that? It's easier to go down a little bit in laning phase to the Eastern style teams and play scaling, and then try to have the scaling make up for your shortcomings as a team.
Yeah, because then the onus is on them. You're presenting them with limited variables.
It's weird how that... You just got to work through it a bit, but the people that they don't like that, they don't want to do that.
I'll just say this: like I'm a master.
Weird, right?
I'm a master tier Nuno OTP. Like if you put me on anything else, I'd probably be gold.
All right.
I fucking cracked it just now.
There you go.
Worked it through, mate.
Yeah,
it's crazy what you get from fucking reading a book or something.
That's weird.
Not
Reading
even,
comprehension's a skill.
I've not even graduated beyond Mr. Men, if you know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
It's like Mr. Strong. It's like Mr. Strong went to the market and it's got loads of pictures in it. That's what I'm reading.
I thought it was a gay joke.
No.
You said,
Then
Mr.
it would be
You said Mr. Men.
Not everything's about you, you know. I do have a good gay joke, actually, that I told the other day in an interview that I'll reuse for you.
Okay.
Do you think that a lot of these Korean imports, are they in any way inspired by the village people from listening to the song Go West?
I don't know what that...
You're gay. You're meant to be listening to that.
I'm not gay.
All right. Well. Been to your laundry room, mate. Seen the closet. definitely fit in there. You're not a big guy. Like, come out. Who did you prefer getting scammed by, Sky Williams or Ocelot?
Oh my god. That's a real question. Sky messaged me actually I want to say earlier this year.
You said, can I have another 250 grand?
So he actually told me that I was getting paid back next. That was almost a year.
You're next. That is so funny to me, as if he's got some sort of like...
Oh, he has paid back a lot of people. Because a lot of people might not know that I was the person that brought everyone together who got scammed. I compiled the list and the evidence and stuff back when it happened.
Why weren't we getting scammed?
Yeah, why didn't you?
No, we need to borrow a couple money, 50 bags.
We need that, buddy. Oh, God, I think I'm missing something here. There's only one more question.
Okay.
You're missing the Griffin.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. So we touched on a little bit earlier about how a lot of potential wonder kids might slip through the cracks in the system, whereas in Korea, actually, it's one of the interesting things. I remember the first thing you ever said when you walked into the MVP house. You walked up to the guy that you knew and you called him a Chobo Baba.
Chobo Baba, yeah.
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 It's crazy thinking back then. That's got to be ages ago.
Is
that a blast from the past?
That's really old, yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, being in those houses, it's such a tightly compact environment. You're sort of there to play, there to practice. So it's almost impossible to you to slip around the cracks. The space is there for you to be there. If you want to turn up and compete, you can be there. Even as a Westerner, you proved that. And a lot of other people have proved that as well. But you mentioned Box as a potential example of someone that had slipped through the cracks in NA, and you felt like they'd really lost a wunderkind in NA because not necessarily relating to prevalent social factors, more so relating to cultural factors. He was more comfortable playing streaming and fucking, doing rhythm combos to random fucking
sure.
Wah, 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 that kind of music. Can you touch on that at all? What the kind of that loss there, in a potential what if scenario, or even just more players like that you think? Yeah.
Well, again, so going back to Malice, talking about Nemesis and other players like this, I think there's very, very few times where I publicly champion that someone's really good. I think this is really well documented. It's also really well documented when I actually make claims like a champion is good or an item's good or something, right? It's very easy to advanced Twitter search it or find a clip. Yeah. Which is why I take so much gripe when people claim 95% of claims are wrong, right? You should be able to point to these things. Yeah. The way that I can point to all these things. So with Box and stuff, I think it's very apparent when you watched his first person view, and you heard how he would break things down, reverse engineer them, and other types of things. And it had all the hallmarks of someone that I thought could be really, really, really good. The same way that I would look at other people with those hallmarks and say, like, okay, these people can be really, really, really good. It's just patterns. That's all that it really is. And I think that when you spend enough time, it's not a short amount of time, right? There was some quote by a poker player who was I don't even know if he's around anymore. His name, he had a very, very, very bad reputation. I think he was very infamous in the poker world. His ID was Stealth Monk.
Oh, yeah.
Justin Schwartz or something like that. And it was some quote where, like, you can tell someone's bad in 5 minutes, but it takes a month to know if they're decent, and then it takes a year to know if they're good. Something like that.
That's a good quote.
And it's similar, like, with League. You can watch someone, and just because they're MMR, like, they're performing well, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. You have to really see, like, what is the building blocks behind their reasonings and everything like that. And I think if you did that with certain players that have, come and go, then we have lost out on a lot of...
Do you think there are any other players that you would identify as big what-ifs? I mean, I know we've talked about Malice, Nemesis, Box potentially as well. Is there anyone else that strikes out to you, or would you say those are the major three?
No, I mean, there's been more, right, throughout the years, for sure. I'm having, like, one of the things where, like, you actively try to think of something, and then you can't. Yeah. Like, if I ask you right now, like...
I know that your brain, you can put it to one side and we can move on if you want. And you
Karibo.
What happened to Karibo, by the way? Where is he? The actual Karibo?
Don't know, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the biggest mystery.
It is. I'm not actually sure. Last talked to him in May. Yeah, May.
Well.
Of this year, yeah.
Such a nice dog. I'm so jealous.
Thank you.
I've just got a fucking cat that hates me at home.
Okay.
It's not even my fault. I didn't do anything.
Anyways, I don't know who I would specifically say.
That's fair.
Off the top of my head. Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that you've kind of future-proofed that as a problem, and almost maybe I don't think this would be your direct motivation, but at least metaphorically it sounds nice to say that in spite of that, you've now helped young lad Griffin acquire a spot in T1.
Yep.
And he might potentially be someone that might have fallen through the cracks, or maybe not fallen through the cracks, but fallen into a trap going through the NA system. Do you think this is a move in the right direction? Like, in terms of, like, it feels like you have actively intervened in a canonized event, it feels like.
Yeah, so the really funny thing, and I said on Twitter that, there would be stories for another time. Griffin blundered his T1 tryouts twice.
Really?
Yes, he completely blundered them twice, and I had to, like...
He's good. Trust me.
We had to pull some strings.
I've got some Pokemon cards in the back I'm willing to stake. Like...
So it was an interesting cycle, but yeah. So now I think he's doing really good there. I talk with him still pretty frequently. Not quite daily these days, but it was daily, like when he initially, like probably for like the first month that he moved. But I talk with him a lot. He does have a weakness in an area that I would say is a very important area, which is like that cerebral aspect of like how you break down the game and like perceive it.
Yeah.
But his skill set in the other department is actually so strong that I perceive it as being, above what it should be at. So in that way, it's interesting.
Do you worry in a sense then? Because it feels like the cerebral aspects is the stuff that comes naturally.
I worry in a sense, but because he's not weathered, that's why I don't worry. I would worry if he's weathered. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it goes back to like the Yosh thing, right? Yeah. I wasn't weathered at the time of my encounter with Yosh.
Yeah.
Right? Had I been weathered, I don't know what happens,
You wouldn't be here.
Probably wouldn't actually. Honest to God, yeah.
Well, I think that was the thing that was so interesting about the question.
Yosh morphed my entire philosophy. Yeah.
I think what I wanted to do in this interview is to really bring it back to the reason you're here is Boxer initially, to even start the journey, partly. And then on the journey, the reason you went the right way is Yosh.
Yosh, yeah.
Who would you attribute your continued success to now?
Well, I mean, my approach to everything is modeled directly from Yosh.
Yeah.
Literally everything that I do is modeled directly from Yosh.
What's he doing now?
So Yosh, a lot of people don't know...
He's getting some fucking money.
Yeah, Yosh, so he was old, old by StarCraft standards. He was 25 at that point in time. Yosh was the best non-Korean player at the end of Brood War. A lot of people would say Idra. Anyone who really played, so TOT members, Templars of Twilight members, Mondragon, Infernal, back then, they would know that Idra...
Mondragon's the guy that was really good at the
Zerg.
Zerg versus...
Zerg. Yeah, Mondragon was
German
a monster.
guy, right?
Yeah, Christoph Simek, I think is his name, from Germany. So anyone who really played back then knows that Idra could not really compete with Yosh in terms of skill. I mean, there might be arguments, like people that would say that that's not true, that are like close to Idra or something like that, but all the top European players back then would be able to testify to, like, this is accurate, because Yosh was just on another level. And Yosh had a direct invite to SKT's A team, which is just unheard of. And it was because of his performance on IC Cup and like ladder and encountering Korean pros and stuff like that. So in StarCraft 2, that's where I really got to talk to him so much, because we were just on Skype. That was the program way back in the day. And I was coming into it so disadvantaged to everyone that was in the beta. And I just had a few weeks to play. And so he was coaching me every single day for hours on end. And it was just about almost like philosophies, ideologies, why to think a certain way, how to approach problem solving, why
breaking it down from the building blocks.
The very, very base foundation, right? And how he would think to do certain things. And his talent was just like, I don't know. I've never even seen anything like it in esport. I really haven't. From like a Western standpoint.
Yeah, because even when you're saying that, like for me, that I was trying to build the analogy. That is, you literally got given this massive, bountiful boon in the sense of you essentially were able to speak to. And I'm trying to think of the league equivalent for the West, but there just isn't one.
There's not a Western equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy right here.
Yeah. No. Well,
Nice try. But
nice try.
It would be like if Faker was born in Croydon, for example.
There you go, yeah.
If Faker was born in the west of London.
Well, if League of Legends ended in, like, I don't know, 2016 or 2017 or something, like if it ended, and, I guess you could say it's like Bjergsen then or something.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Something like that. Like
just some random, like, kid that was kind of, like, pretty decent, but
something.
Not, yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's weird, right? Because if you look up stuff about Yoshi, he had a controversial past too.
Yeah.
And one of the instances on his Wikipedia is also inaccurate. Like the TSL like cheating incident wasn't cheating. I think he did an interview like years later that like talked about what happened. But anyways, yeah. So to answer your original question, he was older at that point in time. He was 25, 26, and he actually had a full-time job working, and I think his job paid like 6 figures. And so he played StarCraft as like a hobby.
It's an insane amount of talent.
So he also did some lectures, I think, at UC Berkeley or UC Irvine to talk about game theory and other stuff. And I think those videos are on YouTube somewhere.
Game theory, like the mathematical thing, not the thing that Matt Pat does when he breaks down Five Nights at Freddy theories.
So I don't know what he's doing nowadays. I last talked to him in 2018. I wanted to get him to come on stream and just like talk about stuff, but I think he's married now with a kid. He sounds like the most ridiculously interesting interview subject if you were to actually just not even necessarily ask him about his career, because that might not be something that's relatively inaccessible, which is so in terms of methodology, because is Aristotle to Socrates? I don't know who came first, but whichever who came first, that is your lineage, I suppose. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be great.
Literally everything I do is modeled. Yeah. Direct. I mean, like if I were to use the word autistic in like a literal sense, I mean, it actually is. It's like, I don't know. It's actually.
What is autistic in a literal sense?
No, what I mean is like it's like almost autistic, like to the sense that it's modeled to such a degree. Yeah. The way that I follow everything. Yeah.
It's all very interesting. Yeah. I feel like we've gone.
So if you're copying a model, how are you still able to think critically at different?
Because the model is to think critically.
The model is to critically think, right? So when I was doing the diagnostics at the center, right, for those 3 months, and I was getting diagnosed, the team of doctors said that the reason that I went my whole life without being diagnosed was because my method for like living life is to mimic and critically think like the way that I do, right? That's the way that my brain's wired, and that helps me fit in. And that's why people can't notice. So, like, people will make the joke, like, oh, I can tell that you're autistic, right, all the time and stuff. But when you have, like, I think I had 5 different doctors at this clinic, right? And I have 5 different doctors, and I had been in therapy all my life, and I had so many different psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, whatever, and none of them noticed until we really got into the meat of it and stuff. And then this team uncovers it because I had a speech therapist when I was young, and this was something that no one ever thought to, like turn a light bulb on for, because that would be one of the big signs. And there was like other like really subtle things that we uncovered in the diagnostic interview about my childhood that were like really big hallmarks or like just really big markers that would point towards it. But yeah, I guess what you're saying, right, about the critical thinking, that is just like what it is. It's just doing that and only that.
Yeah, it is.
But sometimes I can't see things. Sometimes I'm like colorblind. And I have this joke with like Revan and other stuff on stream and stuff where like sometimes I can't see the emotional aspect of certain things that I'm trying to break down. And then it's like being colorblind and I don't know what it's like.
Do you feel like in that sense, if you were to coach in a team, you need someone that understands that to kind of work as a pairing?
I think it's really valuable to have someone like that.
Is that why you think you and Max was a good pairing?
Yes. That's why, Yep. Because I think Max is very amazing at that.
I think one of the things that me and Regan were talking about, just sort of in the thing of this, what we found so sad about the C9 situation was it felt like it was it felt like you were never going to come back to coaching. And I'll ask you to touch on it somewhat, but it feels like there is a narrative, and it is actually a narrative that is backed up by statistics, that you have been on a lot of teams, you don't necessarily stay there for a very long time, and then you move on.
Well, so there was that like politician that made that tweet, and I responded to it on stream, and I broke down the math of it, and I said like some of this stuff actually isn't fair, like to say that like I wasn't like if you actually go into the meat of it, like Tempo Storm, like Reynad was just living here for a month, right?
Yeah.
Tempo Storm just failed to get into LCS franchising. I wasn't removed from Tempo Storm.
Yeah, of course.
So there's that. Gamers 2, I was never officially on Gamers 2. It was freelance, but for some reason it's on my coaching history.
And then SHC was weird as well with the whole XJ9 situation as well.
Well, SHC, I wasn't officially like, I mean, I was a coach, right? Or an analyst, whatever back then, but coaching wasn't officially recognized by
then
Riot.
You had a real difficulty because they announced that they had to have coaches on stage and you weren't necessarily going to move.
Right, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right, so again, there's like context matters for all of this stuff.
Yeah. What was the gravity situation?
So the gravity situation, I had to, I left, and I've talked about that story on stream.
Yeah.
And so I pulled up some of the emails and chat logs on screen because I keep records of everything. This is the only way that I've managed to like defend myself from like whenever people like make up lies or like anything over the years.
Yeah.
Like I just showed you, right? I have like my almost 10-year-old phone that's like sitting there. Okay. So like this is just what I have to do because people just like to create lies and false narratives. So like the gravity thing, just a lot of bad stuff happened in a very short time frame, and I didn't feel comfortable anymore in that environment. And I've talked about some of the stuff that ended up happening there publicly and whatnot. And so I had to leave. So that was that. So I left in summer split. So I was there for spring.
I think it's good to give you the space to justify that.
Yeah.
But in any case, my question was more related to, I think we felt this, what was that noise? Oh, door. We felt this sort of intense melancholy. Melancholy is maybe a bit too sycophantic of a word, but in terms of like, it feels like you are this massive what if in terms of what could happen under the right conditions if people were willing to give you that space to, not to kind of, I think you've spoken about it before, but just to kind of ask, and it's less about the question, more about the dialogue that will spawn about it. Is there any part of you that wants to finally put, not necessarily doubters, because you say there are constituent factors that go into the context of explaining why you haven't coached, but obviously a big part of you must be like, there is so much what if there in terms of like what you could achieve from coaching given the right environment. Do you have a desire to return under the right environment?
No, I don't really care. Like I said, I'm very burnt out with everything. I was very don't
have the energy to dream, like with the quote.
No, I mean I stopped dreaming almost in a way because one of the reasons I always tell people that I feel like I failed because in 2020, 2021, 2022, even as large as I got, I failed to do what I thought was meaningful in terms of being able to change certain perspectives.
Yeah.
Right. I failed to do it. And I just realized that it doesn't matter. And so in that regard, I failed, right? Some people will see what I did and they'd be like, oh, obviously you succeeded, right? Because financially, like, I am financially free, right? For the rest of my life and whatever. And I'm very grateful for that. And like, I managed to get certain sponsorships and I managed to join T1, like as a streamer and almost as a coach. And it came down to my choice, like all these things. And they look at that as successful, but it goes back to what was my original definition
going to Korea,
of success.
getting on that flight, what were you going for?
I wanted to change stuff, and using that definition, I failed. And so I don't see what I did as a success. It doesn't matter to me. And I can objectively look at like a lot of things, and that's why like the Griffin joining T1 thing was so big
that's
to
a
me.
small, I can understand.
That was really big to me because that was the first time in a really long time that I felt like, okay, something was really good here.
Well, obviously, because you tried to, the Malice thing was an attempt to help him. With Nemesis, you're kind of helping him as well. That hasn't necessarily, I mean, hopefully will do in the future, but I can imagine that was a tangible success.
Which one? The Nemesis?
Griffin.
Oh, Griffin.
In contrast to like previous projects that you've potentially been involved with in attempting to, I mean, Fudge would be a success as well.
Yeah,
helping him. I mean, Crown Trick, you help a decent amount as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of these things are obviously big. Like Max winning LCS was really big because that's something that he said that he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing that, right? I really enjoy watching the success of others and getting to know that like there was something that I was able to help in that regard.
But I guess my thing would be, why do you feel like it's too late?
It's not that I feel like it's too late. It's I feel like it doesn't matter because again, people make up their mind based on who they like and who they don't like, right? Like you mentioned just now that it's a known thing that I don't stay on a lot of teams for a long time, right?
Yeah.
But the context is what matters, right?
Yeah.
Some of those teams simply stopped existing.
Yeah.
It's not that I was removed. It's not that I was fired,
Yeah,
right?
but his facts are built in.
Right, but the context matters.
Facts build the
okay,
score, man.
can you pull up a random pro player that is not like Caps or like, you know what like a what's the name of it? When a player is like the main thing of the team. Franchise player, yeah. Can you pull up a non-franchise player, go to their Wikipedia?
Would Kazi do? He's kind of a franchise player.
Is he?
For Mad, yeah, you'd probably say so.
Yeah, well, Mad's been on the same team for years, yeah. Pull up a random non-franchise player.
Yeah, Kazi I've got up here.
He's non-franchise, I just said.
No. Let me think, actually. Non-franchise player. It's one of those things where like, it should be fucking
Pull up a non-franchise, yeah.
Pull
up Whippo, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah.
How many teams has he been on?
Counting when he was playing amateur as well?
Sure.
Cool. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay. Okay, so he's been on 9 teams, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of teams.
Yeah, it sounds like he bounces around a lot.
Well, I think it's actually a bit disingenuous to count the teams he was on as a 15-year-old boy.
But, okay. Oh, but it's fair to have gamers, too, that I was on as a freelance person.
How old were you?
For 2 weeks.
How old were you?
Almost 10 years ago.
Doesn't want to reveal. You're a grown-ass man. Take accountability. Take accountability, buddy.
It's fine to have more that I was on for a week, right? Yeah. And then the team had to break up because it was an ACL, right?
Do you think that...
But no, this is the whole point that it goes back to. People will use the narrative against me because they don't like me.
Yeah.
But you can do this to any non-franchise player, and depending on how you want to word it, it fits.
Yeah. Is it true that...
It's just the reality.
Is it true that in an attempt to pay you back, Carlos actually offered you a 24-month subscription to the Circle?
No. You know, he showed up, what Worlds was it? It was like 2021, I think. He sub-bombed my channel. Hundreds and hundreds of subs.
Was it enough to pay back the damages?
No, I was actually counting. I thought like maybe there was some like...
Get a load of this guy, by the way. Yeah, of course he was fucking counting.
No. Because I was talking to Joe Marsh about it. I'm like, what is going on here? Is G2 trying to... Is G2, you know? What's going on?
Well, you know, didn't do that well the year after. After finals.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah?
So... You're talking about the criticism you get online. Surely there must have been one point in time where you thought, to be fair, that's fair criticism, either in the moment or in hindsight. Is there? What do you think your flaws are as a person or in the scene, and things have been pointed out to you?
I think so. Criticisms.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think like flaws and criticisms as me as a person. So obviously the way that I responded to situations was very different back in the day. Right? There was a lot more emotion packed into it. I was much more defensive. Emotion. Right. I was much more defensive, and I would and I would respond much more heated than I would nowadays. Right, just because of all of like the learning and growing and understanding now of how I like interpret emotions and things like that. I think that in many ways that is a really big flaw that I had. And I mean, I still do have, to a certain extent, right? I think that is not good. I think other things that I would say that I probably do poorly is how I react or just perceive certain interactions with like others, because I'm naturally just cynical and like defensive. Even though I'm willing to just like help everyone out or like talk to people, there's always like this cynicism that surrounds it almost, where like I just assume something bad's gonna happen. And
come from a point of paranoia, would you say? Or
well, is it paranoia when it's right? Almost in a way. Like the most recent incident that like really just it really messed with me was like the streamer situation in August. All the streamers got banned.
Yeah.
And then there was like the witch hunt. Like I'm behind it, and it's like none of them can pause and just think, why would I ever want to be behind that? How bad would that be for me?
Yeah.
To ever be no one can pause and think about that, like logically.
It's quite a funny image though, isn't it? You and sort of some...
Yeah, I'm just actually... I'm controlling...
Do you remember the meme of like Zhao Wei Zhao? They had him like on the broadcast, like turning it all off behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You're in some sort of clandestine position whereby you're just on the phone to Riot, like, shut it down.
Yeah. So I'm trying to actually help them all behind the scenes, and I'm like calling LCK team owners, and I'm trying to get them unbanned and like all this other type of stuff. And simultaneously, I'm watching a stream where I'm like being witch hunt live. And it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Because you'd think the people you're helping would be like...
they don't want to believe that I would be helping them. Yeah. And they're saying this
Well, it's with
loud.
a lot of these things, it's like, it's not necessarily what you believe, it's why you believe it, I think.
Well, I think that a lot so I ended up talking with some of them after this had all concluded, and this is like in September and stuff when I'm on like my break and stuff, and one of them ends up telling me that like they can't understand why I would help. Like they don't understand what I would get out of it, or why when they're not anything to me, there's no friendship, they're so much smaller. Some of them are just so much smaller to me. We've never interacted. Why would I go out of my way to help them?
Yeah.
And to them, that's just a major red flag. Even though one of the things that I tweeted was like, I've demonstrated this is very consistent within my character for like a decade.
Yeah.
There's no inconsistency here. But that irks me really bad, and when that happened...
Well, I think you only need to look at your story to understand that you have received so much in the paving of your path that you must naturally only feel that in creating similar paths for other people, it's almost like, you lay the tracks that have already been granted to you.
Sure, yeah. Well, I want to be able to, especially when people come to Korea, right? I want to be able to help.
I've got to work this into a joke. I never managed to, but you'd spoken about not being gay, being in the closet.
Yeah. Come in. Why does no one ever invite the person into the closet? You ever think about that?
Because R. Kelly did that. And look how that happened.
That was a cupboard, no? Cabinet?
No, the whole thing was he's trapped in the closet. That was
really?
the whole thing on South Park.
You would know, not me.
Why would I know?
I don't know.
Anyway, not to drag on, here's a picture of you doing drag when you were a young boy.
That's not me doing drag. You know the person that did my makeup? She gets to Korea tomorrow. I haven't seen her in...
That is a weird coincidence.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Yeah, she actually just messaged me right before the interview.
Crazy.
Yeah.
There's an interview that someone should go and find. I don't know how I found it. It wasn't useful for my research because the guy interviewing is the most awkward person ever.
The Hot Kia Arizona Land.
Yes, it's got 860 views or so.
Yes, Hot Kia Arizona Land, yeah.
He speaks about you, I think you played against a guy called The Muslim. Not a very well-known player, but he's not actually important to the story. But you talk about a player called The Muslim, and on his Liquidpedia, there is the funniest trivia.
Monk.
Maybe.
Muslim, yeah. StarCraft, yeah.
But there is the funniest, like, you know how you have like trivia under thing? He has what is maybe my favourite sentence that has ever been uttered. I read this and I was dying laughing. Okay. Regan had to wait 5 minutes for me to stop. And then he started crying laughing. This is bad. It's bad. It's in his trivia. It says, he once hugged a swan, but he was afraid if the story went public, it would hurt his image. It's the most insane. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
What is going on right now?
He once hugged a swan, but is afraid if the story goes public, it would hurt his Terran image. It's just
there's a fucking mosquito.
It's such a non-sentence. Like, what does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
I feel like we need to contact the Muslim. We're not going to find him in a church, obviously, but we'll find him somewhere else.
Yeah. I played StarCraft. He might be dead. Went down with the ship.
Fair enough. Yeah. You actually had a theory you posted on Liquipedia in 2007 that the world will end in 2026 because of... You had a lot of theories. This is a thread from LS. Theories on Earth's death. In 2007, it was the rise of a monopoly, the Bush family. That was your theory.
What?
How worldly and woke of you at that time to sort of view globalization in that way.
What happened? I don't even remember this.
In 2026, you said the world would end because a meteor the size of Asia will be pinpointed at the Gulf of Mexico.
I don't even remember this.
Well, to be fair, you were like 60 years
So
old.
I used to do a thing when I was obviously younger where I would just like find stuff from like 4chan and like other websites.
Yeah.
And then I would just post it because I thought it was like, or I would like edit it and post it. Stuff like that.
Fair enough. You responded what your favorite bra color was? It was black. You also said that. Did you
Black's
get that
a pretty
4chan?
good color, yeah. Black's a good color.
How did you know that?
What do you mean?
How did you
Kids have sex in high school, like when they're teenagers.
Guess I was missing out. Fair enough. That sounds really... I'm going to cut that out. That sounds really bad. Fucking hell. Anyway, I feel like we've gone full circle. We talked about where you came from, where you are, where you're going. It's been lovely speaking to you, LS.
That was a joke about my mom, because she had me when she was a teen.
Oh.
That was, wasn't it? No?
No.
That was unintentional. Okay. All right.
I'm not going to shame your mum for the decisions that she makes.
That's fine. You can shame her all you want.
You will do it.
You can. That's fine.
This is an anecdote. I'm calling this out now. The way Regan speaks about my mother is disgusting. Because my mum's quite a frail woman.
Yeah, frail.
Shut up.
Gronk has had a sex change.
No, my mum is tiny, by the way.
Yeah, but she is.
To the point where, you know, my origin story, I have always attributed to, in Shakespeare.
Yeah.
In Shakespeare, the whole thing about Macbeth is he gets told in a prophecy that he will be killed by no man born of a woman. So he thinks, ultimately, I'm invincible, nothing can happen to me. But he's killed by a man that was a cesarean, that was cut out of his mother's stomach. So he was not technically born of a woman.
Ah, okay.
I'm also a cesarean. But the situation with me was there was no complication with the birth. I just didn't want to come out. And I refused to come out for such a long time that they had to cut me out of the stomach. And my first act into the world is I shat all over the doctors.
Oh, okay.
You shuddered at that.
I did.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
But farting off camera is fine and blaming it on me.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. In any case, the way Regan speaks about my mother is... Regan has referred to my mum as a crackhead. He said that my mum... sells those newspapers outside of train stations that no one wants to buy. He also said that my mum had to take a Zoom meeting, but it was in a drug house. He's also said that my mum gets shout-outs on gangster rappers' albums.
Okay.
At the start, the intro tracks. He said on the intro tracks of like 50 Cent albums, they just say, shout out to Don Jake's mum.
Okay.
So, like, anything I would have said about your mum is there's no way comparable about what this guy says about my mother.
Okay.
So, anyway.
That's fine.
But we come from a mother, we're born from it, and so we end. This is the end of the interview, LS.
All right,
We're going to be leaving you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to say to I Will Dominate?
No.
What you're looking like I need to say something.
Congo Cassiopeia has to come out at some point.
Oh, God. We need to
what?
show you something. Have you got the clip on your phone?
I don't have internet.
Maybe I can find it. It will be on... So there's a guy that we know that is like we're a massive fan of him. He's our best friend. And he basically, the story and origin with him is that he got Challenger on the African Super server. He played on a converted 747 that was converted into an internet cafe on Congo. Okay. He's actually Congolese. But he's known as the Congolese Cassiopeia, and he's got clicks like you've never seen. And I feel like we talked about players that like might have slipped through the system and what ifs. I think to me he's the biggest what if of Western League of Legends. So I wanted to bring this clip to you and just sort of get your analysis of what's going on in this clip. I hope that it's like readily available. Is it this?
Wait, there's actually a player from Congo?
Yeah.
What ping does he play on?
Fucking mental ping, mate.
Was it like 300?
Yeah. Where is it? Have you got it?
Oh, I don't know where it is, bro. He sent it to us in a Discord group chat at one point, and he typed something.
I know that he's posted on Twitter at some point.
Yeah, do a little scroll.
Yeah. Here we go. Right, it's not the best quality, Well, I want you to just get a little analysis of this. Break it down for me.
Yeah, let me do this.
Yeah.
What's going on here? All right, let's see.
You can see he's got a donation goal, meal deal from Sainsbury's. So he's obviously out for a bit of cash.
Wait, he only has 30 ping though.
This is on the African Super Server though.
Oh.
Like this is, you've never seen anything like this. The veracity of some of these clicks, the audaciousness.
Now, why do people just get touched by my cue like this when I start with Q? I'm just getting spaced and I'm taking this like as a find. You're getting touched, my dude. You're getting touched. Like dodgy. Alright, cool. Cassie hack.
So
Why does he think I'm hacking?
can you break down for the fans?
Because you're crap and you can't click.
This is the best player ever, is it not?
I don't understand.
What
am I watching?
do you understand? Like this is the future of League right here.
Why?
Are you joking? Is this some sort of joke?
No, what?
Okay, so, you know, white boy comes to Korea, you want to give him credit. Man from Congo, you don't want to give him his dues for his clicks. I get it, I understand. Can you just pretend that he was really good? He's a massive fan of yours. He'll just,
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's try it again.
Yeah, let's try again.
Sakshan's really bad.
Alright, man.
Look how he weaves the auto.
Sakshan's terrible.
Man, he's already messing up. Now, why do people just get touched by my Q like this when I start with Q?
Sakshan bought his account.
From you?
No,
Is
not
that what you're
from me.
doing
No,
after
no,
not coaching?
No, that's not what I'm doing.
Use code LS, guys.
Yep.
Touch my dude. You're getting touched. Like dodgy. Alright, cool. Cassie hack. Why does he think I'm hacking? Doesn't miss a single cue. Because you're crap and you can't click.
So, what's your expert analysis on that? I mean, yeah?
Yeah,
Wow.
we're pretty good. Yep.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've obviously got connections with T1.
Yeah. yeah.
That guy's getting a trial, no?
Oh,
Surely.
absolutely.
Can you just say to the camera, Manaflow Bando, we're going to give you a trial at T1?
Might not even need a trial, honestly. Might just.
Well, you were saying like a Ronaldo situation. I don't do trials.
No, I'm gonna leave. I think this is not. The Akshan is great.
I mean, this is the Congolese Super Server. This is challenging.
Why does he have 30 ping?
Because it's the African Super Server.
They don't have that.
What is this narrative that you're trying to push here? What
What is he doing? What is this?
you know, down in the cobalt mines, they've not got enough power to power up a server. You're keeping the lights on. You're not using the lights.
You know, the most impressive thing though is the players that play on South Africa.
Yeah.
And like 250.
Well,
ping.
this isn't too far away from there.
Why does he have 30 ping?
Well, the thing is, what you've got to think is, why are these South Africans connecting to EU West when they could be playing on the African Super Server?
I never
and you've
thought
got
of
to
that.
think it's related to work ethic, and they don't want to grind on their own server to make it
That
better.
makes sense. And the reason that these players are kept out of the World Championship.
It's like when Jong Dae went to the West, he went to Evil Genius.
It's because they're too good.
Yeah,
I can
this
see,
guy
but
is too
right,
good.
I can tell, yeah, from the gameplay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Goodbye now.
Yeah.
Peace and love. Oh, also, I saw you met up with Nickish, and you got
Yeah.
a facial with him.
No, we were supposed to.
Do you think he thought it was a different kind of facial?
I think he was hoping it was. They don't call him the Vanilla Gorilla for no
Vanilla
reason.
Gorilla.
Yeah.
Wow. What's your name? Do you have a nickname? Have you got a gay nickname?
Do I have a gay nickname?
Yeah. You know me, I don't understand that, so I view you all as like extraterrestrial superheroes. So I expect you all to characterize
No,
yourself by nicknames.
I guess I don't have a gay nickname.
Yeah.
I know that some of my Korean I know like Revan Shrimp and like Imp and them, they have a nickname for me.
What is that?
It's like Baekhyung, which means like white bigger brother.
Is that?
Baekhyung.
That's not even.
But it's like a joke.
Yeah.
Kind of. Because that's also a Korean name, but Baek is from Baekin, which means white person.
Yeah.
Hyung, it means brother. So Baekhyung.
We just get called white devils out here, me and Regan, as we walk around.
Well, Regan is literally named after The Exorcist, so.
Yeah. Anyway, in an exercise to end this interview, I'm going to get on the treadmill
Yes.
and run the way.
That might be a good idea.
Oh, nice. Okay, Twinkie McTwink pants. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
Riot's gonna bring on stage.
For me.
Now Riot does like the cosplay contests.
Which one would I be? LS? Oh, do inform me. Wonderful. What an incredibly emotionally immature and insensitive joke from a grown man.
Yeah.
To comment on my way. In many ways, I look at myself as the Lizzo of interviewers. I mean, the truth might hurt. I mean, we've spoken about it a little bit.
Yeah.
The juice ain't worth it if the juice ain't got a little bit of squeeze. Do you know what I mean?
All right.
She was outed recently, wasn't she, Lizzo?
Something happened.
Goes back to show you. It's like you were saying off camera to me. You can't trust fatties.
I never said that.
You can't trust them, seriously.
I never said that.
That's why you said you were wary of taking this interview with me, because you saw the size of me on the fudge thing and you thought, this is not going to be a good faith interview. He's going to come in here, he's going to spin a narrative.
Yeah.
He's already thinking about spinning his way and doing cartwheels over to the fridge. Sorry, fucking hell, we keep going into something new. Cut the fucking tape. Ruddy up.
All right.
Can we do a ruddy up into camera?
What's that?
It's like what we say, we're ruddy up, you know?
What does that mean?
It's just ruddy the name up, ruddy up.
The fuck? What does it mean though?
I don't fucking know. It doesn't mean anything. It's more of
It doesn't have to mean anything. We can
Are
Ruddy.
you even aware that our org is called Ruddy?
Yeah, it is. Ruddy Corp on YouTube.
Yeah. Shout out. Subscribe.
Yeah. Maybe like the video.
Ruddy
Like and leave a comment. That's all the algorithm
Get
cares
the
about.
algorithm up.
Exactly.
Fuck ruddy up. Algorithm up.
Exactly.
Peace.
All right.